Palladia is a world-renowned fantasy VR game, celebrated globally for its boundless freedom and the endless possibilities it offers its players. However, this virtual realm is far from a peaceful paradise. High above a medieval city, a colossal red dragon dominates the skyline, breathing a devastating torrent of fire upon the architecture below. As buildings crumble and incinerate, the towering beast brings absolute slaughter to the streets, leaving terrified citizens to scatter in panic as they run for their lives to escape the growing inferno. Yet amidst this chaotic destruction, a lone figure stands calmly atop a crumbling stone tower, watching the dragon's rampage. The spearman remains completely unfazed as the structure burns around him. Instead, he drops into a combat stance, brimming with the confidence of a top-ranked player. His mission is simple: slay the massive adult dragon and claim the game's ultimate reward. With an explosive burst of speed, he launches himself high into the sky to meet the roaring beast head-on, driving his spear directly toward its massive jaws. Descending with a fierce battle cry, the spearman vows to send the monster to hell, but the dragon answers instantly with a devastating torrent of scorching fire. The spearman's eyes widen in sudden panic as the intense heat engulfs him midair. Crashing back down, he drops to one knee, desperately planting his spear into the earth to withstand the roaring inferno. The colossal red dragon lets out a deafening roar and violently swats the spearman away, sending him crashing into the ground with a desperate scream. A massive explosion shatters the rocky landscape, sending debris flying in all directions. Battered and kneeling within a smoking crater, the warrior finally realizes he is completely outmatched. As the terrifying beast plummets from the sky to deliver the finishing blow, he accepts his defeat and decides his only escape is to log out. He frantically shouts the exit command, but a glaring red error message flashes across his interface, locking him in. Panic grips him as the dragon lunges forward with terrifying speed. He stares at the broken menu in absolute horror, realizing his lifeline has been severed. With a final desperate scream, he is engulfed by the beast, gaping maw as the dragon's foot slams into the earth, obliterating everything in the area. Meanwhile, in the real world, a massive holographic screen high above a bustling city broadcasts the shocking news. A crowd gathers, watching in disbelief as players attempt a suicidal raid against a different legendary foe, the White Dragon. Down on the street, the young man suddenly materializes in a ring of digital light, gasping for air as the phantom pain of his brutal in-game death continues to haunt him. He glares up at the screen, his fear quickly replaced by a burning desire for revenge. Distracted by his anger, he steps blindly onto a busy crosswalk. A deafening horn blares and he turns just in time to see a massive bus barreling straight toward him. He gasps in absolute horror, bracing for the impact, and everything suddenly fades into a dark, bloody void. His consciousness violently shifts, throwing him into the body of a white-haired warrior plummeting through the sky. Grievously wounded and bleeding out, he wonders if this is truly the end as cold, robotic system alerts flood his fading vision, repeatedly warning him of his critical condition. He slowly opens his eyes to a freezing, snow-covered wasteland. Pushing himself up from the crimson-stained ground, he grumbles about the game's cheap system voice, looking around the desolate northern icefield in total bafflement as to why he hasn't logged out of Palladia. Suddenly, an agonizing pain pierces his skull as a flood of foreign memories rushes into his mind, showing glimpses of a peaceful tribe torn apart by monsters. Clutching his head, he absorbs the life story of a secluded youth named Aiven Alien. Pure shock washes over his face as the pieces fall into place. He hasn't just glitched, he has actually become a quest NPC inside the game. Still stranded in the bloody snow, Aiven desperately summons his status screen. A familiar blue hologram confirms his worst fear: he is trapped, but as he scans his new character sheet, his panic gives way to bewilderment. His starting stats are absurdly high for a basic NPC, rivaling those of a pay-to-win player. The surprises continue when he spots an ultra-rare SSR-grade talent, Core Worldforge. Aiven knows this broken trait guarantees his potential as a powerhouse, realizing that whether he pursues magic or physical combat, this ultimate talent will adapt to any path. However, as he reads his new title, Aiven freezes. He isn't just a random barbarian, he is destined to become the final boss of a massive level 50 raid. A terrifying vision flashes of his future self, Titanforge Aiven Alien, the infamous corrupted hero king, ruling from a throne of bones. Aiven stares at his trembling hands in disbelief before snapping back to reality, realizing that despite this monstrous destiny, he is currently just a wounded kid bleeding out in the snow. His mind races with memories of catastrophic world events looming on the horizon. Visions of the apocalypse flash through his mind, and he stares at his blood-soaked hands, realizing the brutality of this world. Clutching his chest wound, he pushes through the pain with pure willpower, dragging his battered body across the freezing wasteland and leaving a trail of crimson behind. His priority is surviving the impending winter storm. Stumbling to his knees, Aiven fiercely rejects his fate as a doomed villain. With burning determination, he forces himself back to his feet, ready to conquer the ice field and shatter his fatal script. He pushes through the deep snow, formulating a plan to unlock his true power. Spotting a distant hunter's cabin, he decides to wait out the storms before securing passage to the central empire of Lind, knowing that bustling empire is the starting point for the world's major events. With a determined glare, Aiven sets his sights on a familiar path. He intends to master the arcane arts and become an alchemic knight capable of forging impenetrable armor. Suddenly, his ear twitches as a sound breaks the silence. He drops low behind a snowdrift to conceal his body, peeking over the ridge to see a figure approaching through the blizzard. He knows this remote area is far from trade routes, meaning the rider must have a dangerous purpose. A mysterious blonde woman suddenly bursts through the snow, riding a massive fearsome griffin. Behind her, cloaked figures with glowing red eyes charge through the blizzard on demonic blue-flamed horses. They unleash a volley of crossbow bolts, narrowly missing the woman as she urges her griffin forward. Watching from the trench, Aiven's eyes narrow as he notices a chilling detail. Despite the cold, the horses produce no breath. He realizes they are undead mounts used exclusively by the nobles of the Elon Kingdom. As the massive griffin swoops directly over his hiding spot, Aiven gets a clear view of the fleeing rider. He immediately recognizes her, Fredia Gusmith, the Empress of the Elond Demon Kingdom. Aiven Alien remains low in the biting snow, his eyes fixed on Fredia Gusmith as she flees from her relentless pursuers. He quickly realizes that in this current timeline, Fredia is still just a crown princess, a far cry from the formidable empress she is destined to become. Calculating the date, Aiven understands he has been cast back into the era of swords and sorcery, years before the outbreak of the Great War. He shifts his gaze to the three riders trailing her, gauging their strength with the expert precision of a veteran player. He determines these assassins are low-level threats, likely no higher than the second tier. A cold, calculated look crosses Aiven's face as he reaches a single conclusion. He ducks back into the deep snow, vanishing completely from sight just as the chase draws near. The lead assassin readies his crossbow, his eyes glowing with a dark, undead light. When a subordinate asks if the target should be captured, he gives a ruthless order: kill them all on sight. The Elond Kingdom assassins charge through the blizzard, entirely unaware of the trap buried beneath the frost. Suddenly, Aiven's hand bursts from the snow, grabbing the lead horse's leg with crushing force. The impact halts the undead beast mid-stride, sending it buckling forward. The assassin screams in confusion as his mount loses its footing and crashes into the frozen ground. Aiven leaps from his hiding spot, his eyes glowing with a fierce red light. He activates his barbarian rage, feeling a massive surge of strength flood his veins as he prepares to strike. Catching the Elond assassins completely off guard, Aiven becomes a blur of white hair and red aura. An assassin screams in alarm as Aiven lunges, slamming into the rider with brutal force while mocking them for targeting a defenseless mount. The assassin's eyes widen in terror as Aiven's blade flashes through the air, pinning the attacker to the frozen ground. The strike reveals the grotesque, pockmarked face of a bat spawn. Aiven sneers, confirming his suspicion that these are the low-life scum of the Elon Kingdom. The fallen soldier wails in agony, unable to comprehend how he is being overpowered. Seeing their comrade fall, the remaining riders wheel their undead mounts around and charge back. "Take him out," the lead rider bellows, ordering a lethal strike. A hail of arrows whistles through the blizzard, but Aiven's reflexes are too sharp. The projectiles thud into the chest of the downed assassin instead, killing him instantly. Aiven looks back with a cold smirk, mocking the riders for murdering their own man. He watches the wounded vampire, noting that even low-tier ones are resilient to internal injuries. Nearby, Fredia desperately clings to her griffin, Filori, as she tries to navigate the chaos of the storm. The lead assassin points his blade toward her, ordering his subordinate to finish the princess while he handles the barbarian. He sneers at his dead comrade, disgusted that a descendant of the knight nobles could be bested by a mere barbarian. Aiven remains unmoved, even as arrows protrude from his back. They fail to slow him down or break his focus. In a sudden flash of red light, he lunges forward with lethal precision. The lead assassin gasps in horror as Aiven's blade finds its mark, ending the confrontation in a single, bloody stroke. Quickly assessing the threat of the Tier 2 blood drinker and the subordinates, Aiven launches himself at the leader with crushing force. The blood drinker counters with a blindingly fast strike, his blade glowing with dark energy. Aiven narrowly avoids the lethal blow, feeling the cold steel graze his skin. He seizes the initiative, grabbing the vampire's sword mid-swing to pin it in place. With the enemy trapped, Aiven winds up a devastating counterattack. Terror fills the vampire's eyes as he stares down Aiven's glowing fist. A brutal struggle ensues. Blood sprays as they trade blows in the freezing wind, but Aiven ignores his own wounds, driving his blade deep into the man's chest. He credits his rage skill for suppressing the agonizing pain, keeping him focused on the kill. Standing over the corpse, Aiven mocks the lack of real combat experience among the Demon Kingdom's nobility. Suddenly, Fredia interrupts the moment. Hoisting a massive rock high above her head with a look of pure fury, she fiercely defends the honor of Elon's nobility. With a savage cry, she slams the boulder down, crushing the assassin's head in a spray of gore. Stunned by her sheer brutality, Aiven quickly raises his hands in surrender, immediately retracting his earlier insult. These nobles are far more ruthless than he first thought. Aiven points toward the fallen griffin, warning Fredia that her mount is on the verge of death. Panic strikes her as she sprints across the snow. She collapses beside the creature, desperately calling out the name Phylori as she pulls it into a final embrace. The massive bird lets out a weak sound, its eyes fading as life drains away. Fredia bows her head in silence, mourning her loyal partner. Aiven watches from the sidelines, giving her space to grieve. Eventually, wiping away her sorrow, Fredia stands tall and faces her savior with a composed expression. She introduces herself with her full noble title before offering Aiven a simpler name to use. Aiven stares at her, admiring her beauty while recalling her legendary popularity among the game's community. Fredia catches his gaze and demands to know what he's looking at. Flustered, Aiven looks away, making a clumsy excuse about remembering something urgent. He leaves her standing in confusion as he marches toward a fallen enemy. Without hesitation, he pulls out a pair of pliers and begins ruthlessly looting the corpse. To him, these monster parts are a source of cold, hard cash. Fredia approaches the strange warrior, asking for his name and origin. Standing tall, he introduces himself as Aiven Alien, a proud man of the north. Fredia is shocked that he knows the legend of the first blessed son, a story she had only found in the royal library. Aiven demands to know who she is and why she's being hunted, realizing this event is a total mystery. It wasn't part of the game's original timeline. Fredia drops a bombshell. She is the first princess of the Elon Kingdom. She explains that her journey to her Royal Academy graduation turned into a violent ambush. Aiven is skeptical, nodding they are hundreds of kilometers from the Elon border. Fredia looks toward the horizon, revealing that this dangerous detour was her only way to bypass an even deadlier trap. The world knows the Kingdom of Elond as a land of shadows, ruled by the iron fist of a terrifying demon king. While its modern reputation is built on the infamy of forbidden necromancy, the Elonders were not always a people to be feared. Long ago, they were a wandering tribe of healers, celebrated across the continents for their unparalleled medical expertise. However, after being driven out by religious zealots, they were forced to flee into the frozen, monster-infested northern wilds of Palladia. This desperate struggle for survival sparked a grim evolution. The tribe's healers were forged into red mages and flesh monks, warriors who modified their own bodies just to survive the night. From this crucible of desperation, the ultimate dark art was born, the necromancer, a class capable of toying with the very fabric of souls and bones. As he stands in the snow, Aiven recalls the Elond mysteries, the secret rituals where the tribe perfected the dark art of body modification. These transformations turned the Elonders into the world's most unpredictable and feared warriors, hiding lethal trump cards beneath their bizarre, altered appearances that no outsider could ever fathom. Yet this power carries a cruel price, fueling a rigid and oppressive class system. While the nobility enjoys elite, specialized paths, the commoners are subjected to cheap, mass-produced modifications that lock them into lives of grueling manual labor. Watching Fredia, Aiven knows that this seemingly airheaded princess is destined to launch a glorious revolution against this very system. He remembers the game's original lore with a heavy heart. In that timeline, her attempt to break these chains ended in a tragic, crushing failure. Shifting his focus back to the immediate danger, Aiven asks Fredia to explain the real trap she had mentioned. Studying the map, Fredia reveals that the bloody ambush at the Royal Academy was merely a decoy. The enemy's true objective was to corner her and force her back toward the capital city of Avonmore. She explains her tactical decision to bypass the main road in favor of the northern icefield, hoping it would be less guarded. With a clenched fist, she admits she miscalculated the enemy's reach, realizing she was nearly overwhelmed. Aiven watches her closely, surprised to see such a vulnerable side to the woman destined to become the terrifying Blood Empress. Sensing his gaze, Fredia snaps him back to reality, demanding to know if he's actually paying attention to her story. Aiven shifts the focus, asking if she truly wants to know the identity of the mastermind behind the attack. Fredia is caught off guard, stunned that a lone warrior wandering the wastes could possess such high-level political intelligence. Without a word, Aiven reaches into the deep snow and roughly hauls up a surviving, hooded assassin by the collar. Dangling the prisoner before the princess, he asks a chilling question. Who in the Elon Kingdom possesses the forbidden ritual to create vampires? Fredia expresses doubt, struggling to believe the 12 noble families would stoop to assassination just to oppose commoner enrollment in the academy. Aiven stands up, planting his boot firmly on a fallen soldier as he hints at a hidden faction she has completely overlooked. Fredia watches him, puzzled by the cryptic warning, until Aiven calls out to the corpse beneath his foot. He mocks the body for its convincing performance, and in response to the taunt, a cold, lifeless eye suddenly snaps open. The assassin slowly pushes himself off the blood-stained snow, chuckling at being discovered. Fredia gasps in horror as the man's appearance begins to distort. His flesh peels away to reveal a gruesome skeletal face, confirming the presence of the undead. She quickly identifies the magic as belonging to the Hippocratic school, shocked to find a grand magus hidden among the Elon necromancers. The masked assassin rises, mockingly praising Fredia for her legendary academic genius. With a snap of his skeletal fingers, he reveals that the entire operation was backed by powerful forces and meticulously prepared. A dark magic circle erupts beneath a fallen soldier, surging with a malevolent aura. The assassin admits that without this final trump card, the duo might have actually escaped. The ground trembles as corpses begin to twitch and mutate. In a grotesque display of high-level necromancy, flesh, tears, and bones snap as multiple bodies violently fuse into a single entity. A towering, skinless monstrosity emerges from the gore, letting out a deafening roar as green energy flares from its empty sockets. As the giant drips with gore, the masked assassin laments that he must personally end the life of such an outstanding junior like Fredia Gusmith. The princess remains in tense silence, the overwhelming pressure of the monster weighing on her soul. However, Aiven Alien steps forward with a smirk, signaling for Fredia to stay back while he handles the conversation. Aiven nonchalantly approaches the dangerous necromancer, casually asking if the man has even reached the 5th tier yet. The assassin admits he is a 4th-tier master over 50 years old, though he has claimed the final crown of the Flame Sword Path. Looking down at the young warrior, the assassin mockingly asks if Aiven truly believes he can win. "I was only asking out of curiosity," Aiven replies with a cocky grin. Suddenly, Aiven scoops Fredia into his arms, catching her completely off guard. He reminds the masked assassin that barbarians possess the fleet-footed skill. With a cocky wave, Aiven bids the crown-bearer farewell and bolts across the snowy plains at incredible speed, leaving the massive enemy far behind. The assassin stands frozen in shock, unable to believe his prey escaped so easily. He curses Aiven, wondering how the boy knew his skeletal warlord wasn't fully tuned for combat yet. Boiling with rage, the assassin screams a threat at the retreating pair as the grotesque giant begins to shift and groan, its unfinished body struggling to keep pace. The red skeletal warlord lets out a deafening roar as it begins the chase. Under the crown-bearer's command, green spectral wings sprout from the monster's back, allowing it to take flight. Looking back with a smirk, Aiven continues to mock the 4th-tier necromancer, finding it laughable that such a weak opponent thinks they can catch him. The warlord unleashes a barrage of green magical orbs from the sky. Aiven keeps a firm grip on Fredia as massive explosions of green energy shatter the frozen ground at his heels. He weaves through the chaos, using his incredible speed to stay ahead of the destruction. The crown-bearer's frustration reaches a breaking point. He demands to know how a simple barbarian possesses such deep knowledge of forbidden necromancy. Aiven glances back with a mocking smirk, completely unfazed. He dismisses the questions, claiming he's just a traveler passing through as he continues his high-speed sprint with Fredia secured on his back. Enraged, the skeletal warlord vows to bury Aiven's secrets in the snow, lunging forward as its frame rattles with dark power. Vibrant green energy crackles around the monster's chest. The warlord channels its power into a single point, and a blinding light erupts from its jaws as it prepares the extreme diffusion deathfinger. Fredia screams in absolute horror, recognizing the legendary lethal spell. She watches in terror as the world turns a blinding green, fearing that they won't survive the impending blast. Without warning, Aiven Alien suddenly lunges forward and grabs Fredia Gusmith. His hand makes firm contact with her hip, catching the princess completely off guard. Fredia's face instantly contorts with shock and pure outrage at the sudden physical contact. She shrieks at him, clearly mortified by what she perceives as a perverted and rude gesture. But there is no time for apologies. High above the tundra, the skeletal warlord channels its ultimate power into a blinding, destructive burst. Ignoring her protests, Aiven Alien continues his high-speed sprint across the frozen wastes, keeping Freddie Augusmith secure on his back. While Freddie panics, Aiven remains eerily calm, mentally counting down the seconds until the attack hits its peak. His gaze is sharp and focused, timing the enemy's move with the cold precision of a top-tier player. As Aiven Alien surges across the ice with Freddie Augusmith clinging tightly to his back, a blue holographic interface flickers into existence, allowing him to summon a specialized lightweight folding crossbow. With a cocky smirk, Aiven looks back at the lumbering beast and taunts its pathetic speed. Aiven Alien sprints across the frozen wasteland, carrying Freddie Augusmith on his back as they flee the pursuing monster. Suddenly, a glowing blue ring pulses around his waist, amplifying his speed as he navigates the treacherous snow. Taking aim, he fires a massive bolt from his specialized crossbow, the projectile whistling through the air toward the skeletal warlord. Aiven's massive bolt slams directly into the skeletal warlord's skull with bone-shattering force. The impact triggers a violent surge of red lightning and fire, cracking the monster's head wide open. A massive explosion erupts in midair, engulfing the undead giant in a blinding sphere of white and orange heat. The force of the blast is absolute, completely overwhelming the necromancer's trump card. The skeletal warlord's body is torn to pieces, its giant limbs flying across the sky as it disintegrates. Its shattered remains plummet toward the frozen wasteland below, ending the pursuit in a single, devastating strike. The skeletal warlord's massive frame shatters into pieces, crashing into the frozen wasteland as the last of its dark energy dissipates. Red lightning sizzles through the smoldering wreckage, signaling the total destruction of the necromancer's trump card. Aiven Alien stands calmly before the remains, his expression cold and unbothered by the carnage. Beside him, Freddie Augusmith stares at the scene in pure disbelief, her eyes wide with shock. She looks toward the white-haired warrior, her mind reeling as she tries to make sense of the impossible power she just witnessed. Yet before completely vanishing, a spectral remnant of the skeletal warlord glares down with a menacing grin, its body wreathed in crackling red lightning. It acknowledges Aiven Alien's skill, leaving behind a chilling promise before its presence fades. The curtain falls on this first encounter, signaling the true beginning of Aiwen's path as the Titan Forge. Meanwhile, the story shifts to the heart of the Elon Kingdom, where a relentless downpour washes over the capital city of Avonmore. High above the dense, red-roofed buildings, a massive Gothic castle looms through the thick gray mist. Deep within the Schönbrunn Palace, the rain lashes against the elegant stone archways outside the Demon King's bedchamber. A lone figure moves with urgent speed through the palace grounds, their silhouette disappearing into the shadows of the grand pillars. The young prince sprints through the palace corridors, his face etched with panic. His boots echo against the checkered marble as he rushes toward the inner sanctum. He bursts into the grand hall, racing down the long red carpet. Desperation fills his voice as he shouts to the Demon King about Freddia's disappearance. He reaches the end of the hall, only to find his father collapsed and motionless. The once powerful ruler lies slumped over his bed, unresponsive to his son's frantic cries. The young prince drops to one knee on the red carpet, his face etched with desperate resolve. He begs for the authority to lead the kingdom's elite knights and save Freddia. Suddenly, the Demon King sits upright in his bed, his expression cold and unyielding as he listens. He immediately shuts down the request, prioritizing the security of the capital and the royal succession. With a stern gaze, the king makes it clear that the prince is strictly forbidden from leaving his side. The prince reels in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief at the sudden change in succession. The Demon King leans forward, his face weary as he explains the dire state of the kingdom. He reveals that his health is failing, and with Freddia missing, the throne cannot remain vacant. The prince remains knelt on the floor, the weight of the crown suddenly thrust upon his shoulders. The king stares down at him with a cold, unyielding gaze, making it clear that the safety of the realm takes priority over a missing princess. With no other choice, the prince bows low, formally accepting the heavy burden of the crown from his father. He acknowledges the king's command with a calm, steady voice. As he turns to leave, the prince's eyes are shrouded in shadow, masking his true emotions. Behind him, the frail Demon King lies weakened on his couch, his health rapidly failing. The prince strides away, leaving the dying ruler alone in the silent, luxury-filled chamber. Left alone, the King of Elon hangs his head in exhaustion, his face etched with a father's deep despair. A heavy sigh escapes him as he struggles under the weight of his missing daughter's absence. He cries out for Freddia, his most beloved child, his voice echoing through the lonely halls. His gaze falls upon a royal portrait, a bittersweet memory of a time when his family was whole. In the painting, a younger king stands tall and proud in his ceremonial red uniform. The queen sits gracefully beside him, holding a pink-haired infant close to her chest. Standing by her side is the young Princess Freddia, the girl whose disappearance has left the king broken. Back in the frozen north, a violent explosion of energy rips through the frozen landscape, sending a massive shockwave across the mountains. The blinding light fades, leaving behind nothing but a scorched crater and a lingering red glow in the deep snow. Aiven Alien watches the aftermath with a look of pure disappointment, completely unfazed by the destructive display. He had expected a much more cliché villainous exit from the fourth-tier necromancer. Freddy Augustsmith stares at the mysterious warrior in disbelief, demanding to know his true identity. Aiven Alien looks back with a calm, indifferent expression. He offers a simple, deadpan response, claiming to be nothing more than a mere barbarian. Freddy Augustsmith points an accusing finger at Aiven Alien, shouting that he is a liar. She explains that true barbarians find the label insulting and only refer to themselves as Northerners. As they trudge through the biting wind, Fredia continues her interrogation. She demands to know how a simple barbarian could possibly understand the complexities of obscure magic like necromancy. Aiven keeps his pace, leading the way through the frozen wasteland while the suspicious princess follows close behind. Eventually, Aiven raises a hand to halt the interrogation, offering a cryptic excuse about divine whispers to mask his true knowledge. Fredia crosses her arms skeptically, choosing to drop the matter for now despite her clear distrust of his story. She pulls her cloak tighter against the freezing wind, her hand clenching the fabric as they push forward. Suddenly, Fredia Augustsmith bows deeply, her posture reflecting the formal grace of her royal status. She offers her sincere thanks to Aiven Alien for saving her life during 2 consecutive battles in the frozen wastes. Straightening up, a confident and determined smile plays on her lips as she looks at her savior. Fredia declares with absolute certainty that the Augustsmith family will ensure his debt is repaid in full. However, their journey isn't without its chaotic moments. As Aiven Alien races across the ice, holding Fredia Augustsmith close as they flee the remnants of the skeletal warlord's domain, the rushing wind catches Fredia's skirt, lifting it to reveal a sudden flash of color. Aiven's eyes bulge in shock as he accidentally catches a glimpse of her underwear. A cold sweat breaks across his brow as he blurts out the color of her hidden garments. Fredia Augustsmith desperately clutches her skirt, her face burning with humiliation from the accidental reveal. Aiven Alien looks completely flustered, holding up a finger as he tries to find the words to justify his wandering eyes. Even with a skeletal monstrosity chasing them in their recent memory, the situation takes a sharp turn into pure, awkward chaos. The bickering is cut short when Fredia Augustsmith looks back in shock as a blinding light begins to engulf the horizon. She gasps, barely able to finish her sentence as the world around them suddenly turns white. A massive wall of freezing energy known as the White Surge erupts across the battlefield with cataclysmic force. Fredia is left completely dazed, unable to comprehend the sheer scale of the power being unleashed. Aiven Alien keeps his grip tight, charging through the swirling snow and energy as the environment itself seems to explode. Aiven Alien sprints with incredible speed, carrying Fredia Augustsmith over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Behind them, the White Surge erupts into a blinding wall of freezing energy that consumes the landscape. He pushes his body to the absolute limit, desperate to outrun the cataclysmic blast. Eventually, the blizzard howls through the peaks, nearly burying a small, isolated cabin in the deep snow. Inside the humble shelter, a bright fire crackles, providing a warm reprieve from the freezing wasteland. A heavy iron pot bubbles steadily over the flames, filling the room with a comforting rhythmic sound. Inside the quiet cabin, Aiven and Fredia find a brief moment of peace away from the freezing storm. A warm fire crackles in the hearth as they share a simple meal to recover their strength. Aiven studies Fredia over his steaming bowl of soup, his gaze sharp despite the calm atmosphere. He questions her true capabilities, curious about her original plan for the 3 vampires before his intervention. In response, Fredia displays a golden necklace featuring intricate flower-shaped charms. She wears a triumphant smirk, clearly proud of her hidden trump card. Aiven freezes mid-meal, staring at the jewelry with a look of pure shock. He recognizes the item as a gem scroll, an artifact far too powerful for their current situation. Aiven points out the absolute overkill of using such a high-tier weapon on simple vampires. Hearing this, Fredia leans forward, her expression filled with a mix of suspicion and genuine intrigue. She acknowledges that Aiven knows far more about the dark arts than any ordinary barbarian should. Leaning in closer, Fredia directly challenges him, demanding to know the true motive behind the necromancer's desperate assassination attempt. Aiven Alien sits by the warm fire, posing a calculated question about who stands to gain the most from Fredia's death. Fredia Augustsmith looks down pensively, nomming her younger brother Otto as the most likely candidate. Hearing this, Aiwen's eyes widen in disbelief as he recalls the prince's reputation as a pink-haired cross-dresser. He warns her that appearances are often a trap, suggesting the prince isn't the true threat. Fredia offers a knowing smile, acknowledging that Otto's leadership would only fuel the fire between the commoner reformists and the noble conservatives. Aiven stirs the pot, nodding that the Demon King's failing health makes the political struggle even more volatile. He points to a third-party faction, the one controlling the most resources, as the true beneficiary of the chaos. Shock washes over Fredia's face as the pieces fall into place, realizing he's talking about the undead faction. Fredia stands urgently, stating she must return to Elrond immediately. However, Aiven remains seated by the fire, warning her that stepping outside for even 30 seconds means becoming a frozen statue in the white tide. Fredia's face is etched with worry as she refuses to watch her kingdom be destroyed. Aiven stays calm, explaining that the storm's peak lasts 3 days, during which the enemy won't dare move. Aiven points out that Fredia is the biggest threat to the undead faction because she knows the truth about the assassination. Desperate, Fredia turns to him, questioning what his suggestion is since he claims to be a simple barbarian. Aiven looks at her with a confident, knowing gaze. He declares that simply making it back to the capital alive is her first step toward total victory. Fredia stares at Aiven, stunned by his strategic insight and the weight of his words. After a moment of silence, she approaches him with a look of firm determination. Fredia states her desire to stop the conspiracy and admits she needs a knight by her side. Invoking her title as the future 43rd Demon King of Elrond, she holds out a golden flower necklace. She demands that Aiven form a formal contract with her right then and there. But Aiven flatly refuses the contract, explaining that he has other duties and cannot remain in the Elrond Kingdom for long. He looks down at the golden necklace, nodding that a contract with the Gusmith royal family is a sacred, lifelong commitment that he isn't ready to make. Fredia Gusmith stands firm, unwilling to ignore the undead faction's conspiracy despite his initial refusal. Aiven acknowledges her resolve with a serious nod, seeing that she won't be easily swayed. Fredia leans in close, admitting she cannot offer him land or titles at the moment. With a desperate look, she offers herself as payment if he agrees to become her Black Knight. Aiven nearly chokes on his drink, completely blindsided by the princess's blunt and unexpected proposal. He quickly waves his hands in dismissal, clarifying that he has his own mission to attend to and isn't looking for that kind of reward. Instead, Aiven proposes a different price, asking Fredia to perform an Elrond secret ritual for him when the time is right. Fredia is taken aback, realizing that this barbarian is even more straightforward and calculated than she is. She agrees to the deal, provided the ritual doesn't involve state secrets and after she recovers her mana. She asks Aiven if he has chosen a specific ritual so they can gather the necessary materials in advance. The pair leaves the warmth of the cabin, stepping back out into the dark, snowy night to continue their journey. Aiven begins to channel a strange blue energy from his fingertips, struggling to describe the complex ritual he has in mind. Aiven Alien focuses his power, a brilliant blue aura crackling from his fingertips as he activates the core, reshape the world talent. The air vibrates with raw energy, swirling around him in a blinding vortex of light. As the ritual takes hold, Aiven feels the memories of the body's original owner flooding back, the residual factors of the Titan becoming clearer with every passing second. He clenches his fist, a dark determination settling in his eyes. He promises not to forget the original Aiven's mission, uncovering the dark truth behind the burned village that started it all. High in the desolate northern icefield, a lone hunter's cabin stands buried under a thick blanket of snow, serving as their temporary sanctuary. Inside, Fredia Gusmith watches in stunned silence as the room is filled with a complex, glowing blue interface. She stares at the digital-like structures, her eyes wide with confusion and awe. Aiven stands before a massive wall of arcane data, explaining that this ritual is capable of mass-producing warriors with power levels nearing Tier 3 professionals. He looks back at Fredia, noticing her hesitation, and calmly asks if there's a problem with the process. Aiven Alien explains that while most materials are available on the black market, dragon blood remains the only truly rare component needed for the ritual. Fredia Gusmith grabs his arm, her eyes filled with concern as she asks if his ultimate goal is really to stop the war. Aiven looks back at her with a sharp gaze, clarifying that this power wasn't originally designed for peace. He argues that power itself is neutral, and its nature depends entirely on the person wielding it. Aiven smirks, reminding Fredia that in this moment she is acting as a scholar, not a candidate for the Demon King's throne. Moved by his words, Fredia stands before the glowing blue blueprint and swears a sacred oath on her goldsmith bloodline. She solemnly promises never to disclose or use the blueprint without Aiven's explicit permission. Aiven tries to lighten the mood, telling her there's no need for such intense gravity. Fredia shifts focus to their next move, identifying the city of Flandrel as the place to find the remaining ritual materials. They decide to wait 3 days for the dangerous white tide to pass before venturing out of their sanctuary. 3 days later, the pair arrives at the bustling gates of Flandrel, a famous commercial hub in the northern suburbs. The city stands as a neutral territory, governed by trade rather than the direct rule of the sword-bearing nobles. The crowded streets are chaotic, with a massive bull-headed beastman shouting for the commoners to clear a path for a passing carriage. Aiven Alien watches the demon labors with a calculated gaze, noting how the Elrond's secret ritual has physically modified them for toil. Seeing these low-tier monsters in the flesh makes the weight of this world feel far more permanent than any game. He looks up at the vast sky, finally coming to terms with the fact that this reality is now his own. Freddie Augustsmith breaks his trance, excitedly announcing that they have finally reached their destination. They pull their carriage into the heart of the city, surrounded by the chaotic energy of a busy trade hub. A local worker snaps a hostile remark at them, but Aiven keeps his focus on the bigger picture. He pulls Fredia close, warning her that the streets are likely crawling with informants. Fredia's eyes widen in alarm, fearing their presence has already been leaked to their pursuers. Aiven shadows his face with his hat, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd for anyone watching them a little too closely. His gaze sharpens as he spots a group of poorly disguised men loitering in the square. Aiven realizes these amateurs are just bait, meant to distract from the real professionals lurking in the shadows. Aiven Alien explains that they lack the strength for a safe escort and must visit Flanders' black market to find the necessary magic materials. Fredia Augustsmith pulls out a small pouch of gold, worried that her meager savings won't be enough for their needs. Aiven leads the way through the bustling crowd, assuring Fredia that a contact named Mimir will give them the information they need. In a quieter part of the city, pigeons gather on the cobblestones to peck at scattered grain. They approach a man lounging lazily on a bench who offers them a bag of bird feed for half a copper penny. Aiven Alien and Fredia Augustsmith walk through the city square as pigeons scatter into the sky. The man on the bench looks up, his scarred face showing a hint of wariness from beneath his wide-brimmed hat. Aiven stops in front of the stranger and asks for his identity. He speaks a cryptic code, telling the man he calls Garm that he needs to cross the river Geirl to reach the gates of hell. A nostalgic smile plays on Aiwen's lips as he recalls using these exact phrases back when this world was just a game. Fredia leans in close, her eyes narrowing as she wonders if this strange talk is the secret key to entering the black market. Garm leans back on the bench, eyeing the newcomers with deep suspicion. He clarifies that the market is closed to anyone lacking a ferryman's recommendation. Aiven Alien counters with a cryptic title, his gaze steady and unfazed. Standing firm in the open square, Aiven ignores the scattering pigeons as he faces the scarred man. Garm looks Aiven up and down, unimpressed by his lack of heavy baggage. He doubts Aiwen's status, judging him solely by the light load he carries. Aiven Alien breaks into a knowing grin, revealing that his burden isn't what it seems. He reaches into his cloak, ready to reveal his true trump card to the skeptical guard. A brilliant golden light erupts from Aiwen's fingertips as he produces a powerful core. He initiates the world reshaping sequence. The Aiven Alien presents a stunning gold ring, its surface etched with ancient runes and centered with a glowing red gemstone. He holds the artifact out casually, asking Garm if this is enough to prove his status. Garm's eyes widen in absolute disbelief as he realizes the true value of the item before him. The arrogance vanishes from his face, replaced by pure shock at seeing such a rare alchemical masterpiece. Garm drops into a deep, respectful bow, frantically apologizing for his earlier rudeness. He admits he never expected a simple traveler to be a high-level alchemist. Aiven remains composed, explaining that he prefers to keep a low profile while traveling abroad to avoid unwanted attention. With his status finally confirmed, Aiven follows Garm toward the inner city. Flanked by an armored guard, Garm personally escorts the young alchemist through the high-security gates. Aiven Alien reaches the entrance of the hidden market, where Garm welcomes him with newfound respect as a distinguished alchemist. The guard assures him that the night street holds every rare ingredient he might need for his craft. Aiven remains silent, his gaze sharp and determined under the brim of his hat as he prepares to navigate this lawless zone. He steps into a massive cavern, revealing a bustling city hidden deep beneath the earth's surface. Torches line the jagged rocky walls, illuminating a secret district filled with mysterious figures and hidden shops. Aiven follows a guide toward a large brick building nestled in the heart of the cavern city. The guide mentions a wealthy gentleman inside who is currently recruiting skilled alchemists for a special project. He promises that the rewards are incredibly generous, offering Aiven the perfect opportunity to secure the resources he needs. Garm offers Aiven Alien and Fredia Augustsmith a place to rest before taking his leave. Inside the bustling tavern, Fredia is puzzled by the lack of dedicated alchemists in such a massive black market. Aiven explains that while most avoid illegal operations, he's only interested in the right price. Soon a man named Jab approaches the table with a friendly grin, tipping his hat to apologize for being late. Aiven remains composed, acknowledging the man's polite greeting with a steady gaze. Jabba studies Aiven with intense curiosity, amazed that someone so young has already become a full-fledged alchemist. He asks about Aiwen's apprenticeship, eager to know which master trained such a prodigious talent. Aiven Alien claims he studied under Master Edward Elric of the Genoa Commercial Federation before traveling to broaden his horizons. He holds a simple mug while casually discussing his past. Without warning, Aiven activates his world reshaping skill, causing the mug to glow with intense pink energy. The ordinary vessel instantly morphs into a perfectly detailed glass bust of Jabba's head. Jabba's eyes widen behind his monocle as he witnesses the incredible display of alchemy. Jabba bows low in respect, recognizing Aiven as a master of his craft. He invites the duo to the second floor to begin the official appraisal. Aiven and Freddie Augustsmith follow Jabba up the wooden staircase of the tavern. Jabba promises a generous reward and vows not to disturb Aiven's upcoming work. Jabba leads Aiven Alien and Freddie Augustsmith into a private room cluttered with alchemical tools and mysterious potions. He has never heard of the alchemy master, Edward Elric. Aiven casually reveals that the name is actually from a fictional chivalric novel. Freddia's jaw drops as she realizes Aiven just bluffed his way through with a made-up master. Unbothered by her shock, Aiven estimates their pay will be over 1,000 gold pounds. He instructs Fredia to prepare a list of materials they need to collect as part of the payment. Fredia leans over the table, questioning how Aiven plans to actually appraise the equipment now that his bluff is over. Aiven flashes a confident grin, assuring the group that he has his own ways to handle the task. He activates his broken SSR-grade talent, Core World Reshaping, and a blue holographic interface flickers to life before him. 2 hours pass as Aiven works his magic behind closed doors. The heavy wooden door swings open with a loud thud as he finally emerges from the room. Aiven hands a detailed list to Mr. Jabba, informing him that the appraisal is officially complete. Fredia watches from the background, her face filled with confusion as she tries to figure out how he pulled it off. Mr. Jabba's eyes light up with pure joy as he clutches the paper, calling Aiven an honorable alchemist. He promises to deliver all the requested materials and the rest of the gold to the alchemist laboratory before sunset. Aiven calmly acknowledges the deal and prepares to move on to the next step of his plan. Fredia stares at him in total disbelief, completely baffled by the mysterious skills of the man she's traveling with. Mr. Jabba flashes a satisfied grin and prepares to head back first. As he walks away, Mr. Jabba's legs tremble uncontrollably. He can't understand why a simple maid like Fredia Augustsmith makes him feel so much pressure just by frowning. His subordinate leans in close, whispering a chilling detail about their guest. He reveals that Aiven Alien, operating under the name Edward Elric, originated from the treacherous ice fields. Mr. Jabba's expression turns dead serious as he realizes these guests are far from ordinary. He immediately orders his subordinate to contact the boss, knowing they've stumbled upon something big. The journey continues at the imposing gates of the Alchemist Association, where Aiven's true skills will be put to the ultimate test. Aiven Alien surveys the room full of rare artifacts, lamenting that even the capable Jabba couldn't find the necessary dragon blood. Fredia Augustsmith suddenly draws a sharp blade, her eyes filled with a grim determination. Aiven watches her with growing concern, realizing exactly what she's about to do. Fredia presses the cold steel against her arm, a bead of sweat rolling down her face as she prepares to draw her own blood. She makes a precise cut and carefully collects the flowing crimson liquid into a small glass vial. Holding up the vial with a weary smile, Fredia asks if this will be enough to replace the missing ingredient. Aiven stares at the princess in stunned silence, completely caught off guard by her willingness to sacrifice herself for the mission. Fredia Augustsmith slams a thick book onto the table, leaving Aiven Alien to study while she prepares. Aiven tosses his hat aside, playfully questioning if she's discriminating against his barbarian heritage. He settles onto the couch to flip through the pages, but a sudden realization makes him freeze in surprise. Across the room, Fredia is deep in concentration, her hands glowing with arcane energy as she manipulates a blue gemstone. She skillfully channels raw power into a bubbling green solution, sweat beading on her face from the intense effort. Aiven watches the display in awe, realizing that her mastery of alchemy far surpasses his own expectations. 3 hours pass as the candle burns down to a waxy puddle. A rectangular vat filled with glowing green liquid sits in the center of a pulsing magic circle. Fredia Augustsmith wipes sweat from her brow, looking drained from the intense concentration. She worries her skills have regressed, admitting this is her first time attempting this specific sorcery modification. Fredia asks Aiven Alien if he's truly ready to use the ritual without a proper test. Aiven flashes a confident grin, assuring her that he has complete faith in her abilities. As he steps forward, Aiven's system interface reveals a staggering 200% completion rate. He realizes the ritual wasn't just successful, it was perfectly optimized despite the substitute materials. Aiven Alien reassures Fredia Augustsmith, telling her to have confidence in both him and her own skills. He begins to strip, dropping his shirt to reveal a powerful, battle-hardened physique. With a confident smirk, Aiven declares it's time to start the ritual. Fredia gasps in shock, shielding her eyes as she demands to know what he's doing. Aiven ignores her embarrassment, telling her to look away as he prepares his body for the modification. Fredia focuses on the task, using a glowing brush to paint intricate runes across Aiven's muscular back. She activates the spell Limit Double False Life, her hands steady despite the high stakes. A complex magic seal erupts into a bright golden glow on Aiwen's skin, pulsing with raw energy. As Aiwen approaches the glowing chemical vat, Fredia explains that her water-breathing spell will allow him to submerge without drowning. Aiwen Alien steps into the glowing green vat, his expression focused and determined. Fredia Gusmith watches from the sidelines, her face etched with concern. Aiwen tells her not to overthink it, insisting this dangerous procedure is for his own benefit. He fully submerges into the bubbling liquid, closing his eyes as the magic takes hold. Floating peacefully underwater, Aiwen reminds himself that he is doing this to secure his own future. A surge of green energy erupts from within the vat as the modification begins. Aiwen Alien's eyes snap open, glowing with a vibrant green light as the modification takes hold. He stares down in shock, seeing his own body floating helplessly within the glowing vat. Confused and disoriented, he wonders if his soul has been completely separated from his physical form. He finds himself in a digital blue void, standing before a complex holographic map of human anatomy. Detached organs drift around the glowing silhouette, waiting to be integrated. Aiwen realizes with a start that he must manually assemble his new internal structure. Despite his status as a veteran player, the prospect of performing virtual surgery leaves him breaking out in a cold sweat. A massive countdown timer flickers into existence, signaling that he has less than 5 minutes to finish. Knowing he can't afford to hesitate, Aiwen pushes past his fear and prepares to take control of the process. He reaches out toward the holographic heart. Determined to stabilize his circulation and survive the transformation, Aiwen Alien successfully seats the glowing heart into the holographic model, completing the first step of his complex modification. He moves with expert precision, rapidly integrating the nervous, digestive, and respiratory systems into the digital blueprint. Stepping back, Aiwen admires the final results, pleasantly surprised to find a set of black carapace armor included in the design. The holographic armor pulses with intense energy as the system prepares to finalize the changes. The countdown timer hits 0, locking in the massive internal restructuring. Blue system messages flash across his vision, confirming a significant increase in all of his physical attributes. Aiwen stares as the heaven-bestowed armor talent and the legendary Titan bloodline are officially unlocked. He shouts in protest as the interface begins to fade, desperate to finish his final inspection of the new stats. Meanwhile, Aiwen Alien lies submerged in the glowing green alchemical tank while Fredia Gusmith monitors the ritual. Fredia watches with a satisfied expression, noting the formation's high efficiency. She stares at the unconscious warrior, acknowledging the immense benefit he's receiving. Inside the tank, Aiwen remains still as the green energy surges through his body, restructuring his physical form. Suddenly, a loud, rhythmic knocking echoes through the quiet room. Fredia snaps her head toward the door, her expression shifting to sharp suspicion. She realizes an uninvited guest has arrived at the worst possible moment. A heavy hand pounds on the door, interrupting the silence of the lab. Mr. Jabba stands in the hallway, clutching his hat with a polite but forced smile. He apologizes for the intrusion, claiming there's a discrepancy in the recent inventory. Inside, Fredia Gusmith keeps her hand raised, glowing with a faint green light. She firmly tells him that Aiwen Alien is currently in the middle of a delicate experiment and cannot be disturbed. Fredia's expression sharpens as she senses the hallway's arcane seals vibrating. She realizes Jabba isn't alone, there are multiple people lurking outside the door. Needing to buy time, Fredia activates a sealing ward. Thick thorny vines erupt from the walls, tightly lashing across the door to block any forced entry. She quickly pivots to her next spell, preparing an instant faction-designated summon. With a focused command, she calls forth a Tier 1 monster to bolster her position. A massive blue magic circle swirls into existence, illuminating the room with a cold, spectral light. A brilliant orb of white energy emerges from the center of the portal, pulsating with raw power. Fredia looks at her new ally with a weary but grateful expression. She asks the creature to help her quickly replenish her dwindling mana reserves. Fredia Gusmith channels her mana, a brilliant orb of light pulsing before her chest as she prepares for the coming confrontation. Outside, the intruder bangs desperately on the door, his voice filled with a forced sense of urgency as he tries to break her focus. Ignoring the distractions, Fredia begins a rapid-fire summoning chant, layering multiple tiers of spells in quick succession. A massive polar bear clad in enchanted armor and a glowing spectral cat emerge from the swirling blue energy. Fredia stands at the center of a massive magic circle, her army of summoned beasts ready to defend the room. With a sharp, determined gaze, she pushes her limits to unleash a high-level 5th circle planar spell. A golden sigil erupts above as a radiant choir angel descends in a pillar of blinding divine light. Fredia stares at her ultimate summon, prepared to hold the line while Aiwen Alien completes his transformation. Gabrielle, the radiant choir angel, descends with a look of stoic determination. Her massive white wings spread wide as she gazes down at her master, Fredia Gusmith. Gabrielle gently holds the princess, vowing to fight for her lady with unwavering loyalty. Others lose their patience, and their leader orders Blue and Gugu to smash through the entrance. One of the massive thugs lunges forward, determined to be the first one to break into the room. He slams his shoulder against the door with all his might, but a glowing golden magic circle suddenly erupts. The powerful defensive ward blasts the attackers backward with a massive surge of energy. The thugs are sent flying through the air, screaming in terror as the magic holds firm. The lead attacker crashes into the floor, cursing the damned magic that blocked their path. Jabba's face is twisted in a snarl as he orders his men to smash through the door. A mob of thugs armed with axes and heavy clubs prepares to launch a brutal assault. They batter the entrance with relentless force, the sound of wood splintering echoing through the hall. Despite the heavy blows, the door is reinforced by thick, glowing vines that hold the barrier together. Inside the quiet room, Gabrielle the choir angel pulls Fredia Gusmith into a protective embrace. Fredia quickly pulls away, her focus remaining sharp despite the chaos outside. Her expression turns grim as she shares the secret of her father's critical condition. Fredia entrusts Gabrielle with a vital mission, to find her mother and deliver the news of the king's failing health. Gabrielle watches the princess with a sharp, knowing look as she accepts the solemn task. The door finally shatters under the weight of the assault, and Jabba's thugs burst into the room with axes raised. Fredia Gusmith stands her ground as her summoned guardians prepare to meet the intruders head-on. Jabba stares in absolute shock, realizing the odds have shifted drastically against his men. He panics, unable to comprehend how two targets suddenly turned into a small army of powerful creatures. Gabrielle leads the counterattack, her wings flared as she and a fierce white wolf dive into the thick of the enemy. A terrified guard screams for his comrades to hold back the beasts, but his words only fuel the creature's rage. The massive polar bear, wearing a pair of scholarly glasses, lets out a deafening roar of pure indignation. It takes personal offense at the insult, demanding to know who they think they're calling a beast. With a brutal swipe of its claws, the bear slams a guard into the ground, leaving him broken and bloodied in an instant. Jabba's thugs are being absolutely decimated by the summoned blue golem. One guard lets out a blood-curdling scream as he's sent flying by a massive blow. Seeing his men fall, Jabba panics and orders everyone to run for their lives. A fearsome white wolf, crackling with lightning, corners the terrified merchant. Jabba trembles, desperately trying to pacify the beast by offering tasty treats while clutching a small knife. The wolf isn't interested in snacks and lunges forward with a deafening roar. It sinks its teeth into Jabba's arm, ignoring his pathetic attempt at defense. Gabrielle covers her face in embarrassment, finally understanding why Aiven Alien didn't summon her sooner. Fredia Gusmith snaps at her, demanding she take the battle seriously since it isn't over yet. Below them, Aiven Alien remains unconscious in the glowing green vat, his body still undergoing the intense modification. Jabba flees the room in a blind panic, wailing about his little Freya being kidnapped by a barbarian. Fredia watches him go, completely baffled by the ridiculous nonsense he's shouting. Gabrielle is horrified to discover that Fredia Gusmith used her own noble blood to perform a secret ritual for a barbarian. Fredia tries to play it cool, telling her friend to hush and that the situation isn't what it looks like. Her expression turns soft and sincere as she looks at the man in the tank, admitting that he is a very important friend to her. Inside the glowing green vat, Aiven Alien's body has reached a new level of physical perfection, pulsating with raw energy. Fredia gazes at him with a gentle smile, urging him to finally wake up. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the laboratory. Fredia snapped her head toward the noise, panic rising as she wondered what happened. She found her summons, Gabrielle, Gugu, and Blue, looming over a defeated enemy. The fallen man gasped in agony as a dark, malevolent energy erupted from his body. It was a deadly curse, and the danger in the black market was far from over. Fredia and Gabrielle stood over a fallen body, realizing a lethal curse was planted to frame them as murderers. A mysterious hooded figure appeared in the courtyard, addressing Fredia as his dear old classmate. Fredia's eyes widened in absolute shock as she recognized the intruder. She whispered the name Cayenne Paulus as the figure's eyes flared with a sinister red glow beneath his hood. Backed by Gabrielle and the blue slime golem, Fredia confronted Cayenne, accusing the necromancer faction of betraying the Elrond royal family. Cayenne casually pulled back his hood, flashing a smug grin while dismissing her talk of treason as a simple school reunion. Gabrielle remained tense, sensing an overwhelming evil aura radiating from the man. Cayenne mocked the angel's intuition before unleashing a swarm of dark, shadowy wraiths from his hands. Cayenne Paulus unleashed a terrifying, horned skeleton wreathed in suffocating black smoke. Fredia watched in disbelief, realizing Cayenne had already reached the rank of a Tier 2 spirit master within the necromancer faction. Cayenne smirked, asking Fredia if she truly understood the heavy price a person of low birth must pay to obtain such strength. He produced a dark serpent artifact, determined to show her his resolve through a final, desperate act. A torrent of malevolent energy erupted from the disc, coiling around Cayenne like a living shadow. With his eyes glowing a sinister red, Cayenne declared that the price for his ultimate power was absolutely everything. Gabrielle pointed toward the sky, summoning a brilliant beam of light as she called for the holy sword. She spread her wings and bellowed a command to protect Fredia at all costs. Gugu and the white wolf answered the call, letting out a ferocious roar as they prepared to tear into their enemies. Blue clenched his massive fists, his slime body rippling with power as he prepared to strike. Amidst the frantic brawl, Aiven finally made his move, letting out a confident laugh as he dominated the battlefield. A devastating blast of magical energy erupted, sending a massive shockwave through the room and ending the fight in a blinding flash. The impact created a massive explosion of smoke and debris. Gabrielle descended with a heavy thud, her massive wings kicking up dust as she planted her sword into the ground. Gabrielle promised to shield Fredia from any harm, her expression full of unwavering loyalty. Gugu and the white wolf caught their breath, their bodies smoking from the intensity of the previous shockwave. Fredia warned her summons to stay back, terrified that getting hurt in their physical forms could lead to their permanent deaths. As the dust began to settle, Gabrielle spotted a dark silhouette looming in the distance. Fredia stared into the haze, her heart racing as a sense of dread washed over her. A towering figure emerged from the smoke, its dark blue armor glowing with a sinister purple light. Fredia gasped in horror as she identified the monstrous new enemy, the Nether Iron Guard. Fredia confronted Cayenne, appalled that he would go as far as burning the souls of his victims. Cayenne remained completely unmoved, mockingly asking if the princess actually felt pity for a group of low-life thugs. Gabrielle stepped in with a righteous glare, her massive wings spreading as she rebuked his twisted logic. Cayenne flashed a sinister grin, finding the angel's moral high ground both predictable and amusing. His expression shifted into something far more demonic as dark energy began to swirl around his hand. With a sharp command, Cayenne unleashed the Nether Iron Guard upon his opponents. The massive armored monstrosity let out a deafening roar and charged forward with terrifying speed. Gabrielle immediately jumped into action, shielding Fredia while preparing for a head-on collision. The angel's blade clashed against the monster's weapon, sending sparks flying as the two powerhouses traded blows. The Nether Iron Guard swung its massive, soul-burning blade with crushing force. Fredia's eyes widened in alarm as the colossal weapon neared. Gabrielle lunged forward, manifesting a glowing magic shield just in time. The angel declared it was her turn to protect the princess. The heavy blade slammed into the divine barrier, sending sparks and purple energy flying. Fredia offered her thanks as Gabrielle delivered a powerful kick to the armored monstrosity. The impact sent the undead puppet reeling backward across the stone floor. Fredia gritted her teeth, realizing the puppet was a perfect shield for its master. She knew she could not land a single hit on Cayenne as long as this creature stood in her way. Cayenne watched the struggle with a condescending smirk from the shadows. He mocked Fredia, claiming her performance was a disgrace to her royal bloodline and secret rights. The necromancer leaned in close, his eyes glowing with a sinister red light. He taunted the princess, telling her she was wasting her enviable potential. Cayenne suddenly paused, looking around the battlefield with growing suspicion. He wondered aloud where the damn barbarian had disappeared to. A cruel laugh escaped him as he questioned if Aiven had abandoned his princess to save his own skin. Fredia gazed down with a pained expression, desperately hoping that Aiven would awaken soon. Her hand hovered over her glowing bracelet as she prepared to unleash a final, desperate move. Cayenne laughed maniacally, recalling that Aiven was currently undergoing the royal secret ritual. He mocked the princess's generosity just as a loud crack echoed through the laboratory walls. With a deafening boom, a massive glowing hand burst through the stone as Aiven Alien finally awakened, radiating an overwhelming new power. He barely had time to gasp before an iron grip slammed onto his face, muffling his panicked cry. Seeing the familiar white hair, Freddie Augustsmith cried out Aiven's name with a look of pure relief. He desperately tried to command his nether iron guard to finish the job, but he could not even get the words out. Aiven Alien, now radiating a terrifying new power from his successful modification, slammed the necromancer's head into the stone floor with bone-crushing force. He bellowed a command to stop, his voice echoing through the lab like thunder. Completely overpowered and pinned to the dirt, Kyan's arrogance evaporated as he frantically begged for his life. Despite the chaos, the nether iron guard remained mid-swing, its massive blade aimed directly at the exhausted Fredia. Kyan screamed at the top of his lungs, ordering his puppet to halt its lethal strike before Aiven could crush his skull. The armored monstrosity let out one final, deafening roar as it struggled against the sudden command. The soul-burning blade froze just inches from Fredia's throat, held back by a surge of magical energy. Aiven remained completely calm, keeping the trembling necromancer pinned with one hand while examining a strange artifact in the other. He looked down at the terrified Kyan with a sharp, inquisitive gaze, demanding to know exactly what the mysterious object was. Aiven Alien gripped Kyan Paulus by the collar to demand answers, while Kyan trembled, insisting that the remote control for his puppet had already been deactivated. A heavy armored boot slammed into the ground, shattering the brief moment of peace. The nether iron guard roared back to life, fixing its glowing purple eyes on its target. Freddie Augustsmith gasped in horror as the massive monstrosity lunged toward her once again. Kyan Paulus frantically tried to command the puppet, but it refused to listen. He realized with a start that his own mentor might be sacrificing him just to ensure the princess's death. The nether iron guard unleashed a deafening roar, its massive frame looming over Fredia. Aiven Alien realized the puppet was receiving orders from someone with even higher authority than Kyan. Sensing that the true mastermind was approaching the laboratory, Aiven knew he had to end the fight instantly. Aiven surged forward with incredible speed, tossing the useless Kyan aside as he moved to finish the battle. Aiven Alien lunged at the nether iron guard, his fist glowing with power. The massive armored monstrosity let out a bone-chilling roar as it prepared to retaliate. The guard unleashed a flurry of spear strikes, the air whistling with lethal intent. Freddie Augustsmith watched in terror as the barrage of blades descended upon her savior. Seeing the danger, Fredia screamed a desperate warning for Aiven to move. Instead of dodging, Aiven stood his ground, blocking the massive spear with his bare arm. Sparks flew as the metal struck his skin, but the weapon failed to pierce him. A massive surge of energy erupted from the impact, but Aiven did not flinch. He looked up with a cocky smirk, revealing that he had been hiding a secret defense. Aiven Alien caught the nether iron guard's massive spear with his bare hands, letting out a fierce battle cry. With a display of overwhelming raw power, he slammed the armored monstrosity into the floor, shattering the stone beneath them. The once unstoppable guard was buried under a pile of rubble and ice, completely neutralized. Aiven stood amidst the settling dust, admiring the incredible strength of his newly modified body. He turned his attention to Kyan Paulus, mockingly asking if the villain had any final words. Kyan gritted his teeth, his face twisted in a desperate, sinister grin as he warned that his mentor was only minutes away from the city. Aiven stands over the defeated Kyan Paulus, casually tossing a pouch of stolen loot in his hand. Kyan cringes on the cold ground, stripped down to his underwear and shivering in humiliation. He screams at Aiven, calling him a bandit for stealing every piece of gear he owned. As they walk away, Gabrielle follows closely behind, Fredia questioning why the traitor was allowed to live. Aiven explains his cold calculation, believing Kyan's cowardly nature will eventually serve their interests better than his death. The group arrives at the Alchemist Prospectors Association, a grand brick building with imposing glass doors. The quiet atmosphere is shattered as a carriage violently crashes through the area, sending shards of glass flying in every direction. Aiven clings to the roof of the speeding carriage, his eyes sharp as he navigates the violent wreckage. Aiven clings to the roof of the speeding Magitech carriage, his face set in a grimace as he tries to maintain control. High above the chaos, Gabrielle flies through the air, securely holding Fredia as they hover over the runaway vehicle. Gabrielle looks down with a mix of fury and panic, screaming at Aiven and questioning if a barbarian like him even understands the machinery he's hijacked. She demands to know if he has any actual experience driving such a complex vehicle. Aiven lets out a reckless laugh, looking surprisingly calm despite the life-threatening speed. He casually admits he has no clue what he's doing and is currently reading the instruction manual. Fredia's eyes widen in pure disbelief as she realizes their lives are in the hands of someone learning on the fly. Aiven's face lights up with triumph as he excitedly announces that they are riding a Dawn Type 1 Magitech carriage. The moment of victory is short-lived as Fredia spots a looming obstacle and screams for Aiven to watch out. The massive carriage barrels toward a stone structure with no signs of slowing down. Aiven's cocky expression vanishes instantly, replaced by a look of pure horror as he realizes he's about to crash. Aiven grips the controls of the Magitech carriage with white-knuckled intensity. He yanks the lever back, desperately trying to slow the runaway vehicle as it screeches through the narrow streets. The carriage tilts dangerously on two wheels as Aiven forces a sharp turn around a stone corner. Sparks fly from the wheels, but he manages to keep the heavy machine from flipping over. Aiven lets out a wild, confident laugh, finally feeling in control of the complex machinery. He slams the throttle forward, pushing the carriage to its absolute limit. The Magitech carriage blurs past the ancient buildings while Gabrielle keeps pace from above, still carrying Fredia. A massive, ominous plume of black smoke suddenly erupts from the distant castle towers, blotting out the clear blue sky. Gabrielle stares in horror at the unnatural darkness, her voice trembling as she questions what could cause such a terrifying sight. Aiven's eyes narrow as he looks up from the driver's seat, his previous excitement instantly replaced by grim realization. He immediately identifies the threat as Lucius Sulla, a Tier 4 Grand Wizard from the notorious Hippocratic School. Aiven explains that the ominous cloud is actually a dark canopy, a magical shroud teeming with a massive legion of undead monsters. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Gabrielle tells the others to continue toward safety without her. Fredia calls out in confusion, but the Gabrielle is already preparing to face the coming storm alone. Gabrielle takes a stand, vowing to hold off the approaching threat. Fredia watches in horror, realizing the angel is about to activate her forbidden swan song technique. She warns that such a powerful move will tear Gabrielle's soul apart. Unfazed, Gabrielle charges toward the dark clouds with a clenched fist. She explains that this form is merely a projection, shielding her true self from the ultimate price. Though it will leave her bedridden for days, she promises Fredia that she will survive the impact. Fredia cries out in desperation as Gabrielle disappears into the unnatural darkness. With a final, determined smile, the angel prepares to sacrifice her current form. A blinding explosion of light erupts as the swan song takes flight. A massive spectral bird surges through the sky, shattering the dark canopy with divine energy. Gabrielle watches in wide-eyed shock as the battlefield is consumed by chaos. The massive skeletal warlord reveals its terrifying true form, towering over the area like a god of death. Gabrielle realizes this is the enemy's ultimate state, a monstrous dragon made of bone and dark energy. The beast unleashes a deafening roar, commanding an endless legion of skeletal soldiers to swarm the field. A blinding white light erupts from the center of the conflict, clashing violently against the necrotic purple aura. Staring at the swirling storm of dark clouds and lightning, Fredia acknowledges the overwhelming pressure of a Tier 4 power. Aiven steps up beside her, admitting with a hint of regret that such immense strength doesn't belong to him just yet. Fredia looks at him, her face etched with the exhaustion of the brutal struggle. Aiven's expression hardens as he urges her to hurry, knowing they are still in the heart of enemy territory. He reminds her that they must move forward so that Gabrielle's sacrifice won't be in vain. With a final, determined look, Aiven prepares to lead Fredia away from the Tier 4 nightmare before it's too late. A carriage tears down the forest road, leaving a trail of dust as Aiven and Fredia make their desperate escape. Above the canopy, a radiant figure with massive white wings descends, a beacon of light against the gathering darkness. The battlefield below becomes a scene of absolute carnage as beams of holy light rain from the sky. Explosions tear through the ranks of the undead, shattering bone and armor in a blinding display of power. Seeing his forces decimated, a high-ranking necromancer raises his staff and screams for his legion to defend. The skeleton soldiers lock their shields together, their eyes glowing with a malevolent purple aura. A colossal dome of necrotic energy erupts around the army, creating an impenetrable barrier against the divine bombardment. Gabrielle looks up, her expression hardening as she realizes the weight of the moment. She whispers a final prayer, hoping that Fredia has managed to put enough distance between herself and the battlefield. Stealing her resolve, Gabrielle prepares to unleash her ultimate power, her final song, against the encroaching darkness. A blinding pillar of divine light descends from the heavens, striking the necromancer's purple dome with absolute force. The impact triggers a cataclysmic explosion that tears through the sky in a massive, glowing cross. Violent shockwaves ripple across the mountains, shattering the earth and leveling everything in the blast zone. Beams of holy energy continue to rain down, clearing a safe path for the carriage as it speeds toward the horizon. The colossal necrotic barrier finally shatters under the divine pressure, leaving the necromancer's army in ruins. With the dome obliterated, Gabrielle's final strike ensures that Aiven and the princess can escape the clutches of the Eland kingdom. The Grand Magus stares down Gabrielle, demanding to know if she is truly a choir angel from the divine realm. His eyes glow with a sinister purple light as he questions what business Gabrielle has with such a heavenly entity. Gabrielle isn't interested in talking and bluntly tells the old man to mind his own business while flipping him off. She warns him to consider himself lucky, promising that next time she'll be in her true body to decapitate him with her axe. A swirl of golden energy begins to envelop the area as the confrontation reaches its end. Gabrielle erupts into a mocking laugh. He watches the light fade, genuinely curious about the incredible hidden power Fredia has managed to gather by her side. The Grand Magus realizes this mission has become far more complicated than he anticipated. He barks the order to retreat, pulling his dark canopy back from the battlefield. The smoke clears as the necromancer's army vanishes into the horizon. The Magitech carriage continues its frantic journey through the dense forest. Aiven pulls the vehicle over, realizing they've run out of fuel and water. Fredia asks Aiven if he hears the sound of someone weeping nearby. Aiven's eyes widen as he spots a lone figure standing in the middle of a vast, open field. The peaceful landscape is suddenly shattered by the desperate screams of a child. Aiven and Fredia stand at the edge of a golden grain field, witnessing a scene of absolute devastation. A distraught man wails over a massive, blood-soaked carcass, mourning what he believes is a farmer's fallen plowing ox. Aiven stares at the carnage with a grim expression, his eyes narrowing as he recognizes the true nature of the victim. Fredia corrects Aiven, his voice cold as he reveals that the creature isn't livestock at all. Fredia's face pales with realization as she identifies the remains as a human being. The camera shifts to the grotesque, horned head of the victim, revealing the terrifying physical modifications typical of the people of Eland. Back at the laboratory, the red-haired Cyan Paulus crawls across the cold stone floor in a state of utter humiliation. Stripped of his gear and power, he seethes with a burning hatred for the man who defeated him. Cyan slams his fist against the ground, cursing Aiven alien for being a barbaric thief who stole his dignity. A mysterious figure shrouded in a malevolent green glow appears behind Cyan Paulus. Kuro Wige steps into the light, announcing he's arrived to take over the mission post. Cyan trembles with fear, terrified that the master is abandoning him after his humiliating failure against Aiven. Kuro calms him down, claiming the master is actually promoting him to Tier 3 as compensation for his efforts. Overjoyed, Cyan flexes his massive muscles and shouts his thanks to their leader. Kuro's expression turns cold as he drops the act, warning Cyan that the master actually wants to flay him alive for his incompetence. He reveals that Cyan was only spared because a powerful Tier 4 Grand Wizard vouched for him. Confused and desperate, Cyan asks why Kuro is sharing this dangerous information. A sinister smile spreads across Kuro's face as he leans in with a proposal. He offers to share the credit for the mission and clear Kyan's offense in exchange for information on Aiven. Kyan leans in with a predatory grin, demanding a higher price for the intel. The scene shifts to a peaceful village nestled deep within a lush, green valley. Aiven hands out candy to a group of excited children, his usual cold demeanor replaced by a gentle smile. The kids cheer and laugh, grateful for the small treat from the mysterious traveler. A village woman bows low, expressing her deep gratitude to Aiven for helping bury her husband and providing essential supplies. Aiven dismisses her thanks, insisting that their help in finding a water source was payment enough. Fredia watches the scene from the sidelines, her arms crossed as she grapples with a growing sense of inadequacy. Aiven approaches her, explaining that they'll be ready to leave once the Magitech carriage is refilled. Fredia stares at the ground, questioning her own worth as the elder princess of Eland. She feels completely helpless seeing her people suffer while she can do so little to change their fate. Aiven takes his place at the controls of the Magitech carriage. He reminds Fredia that in this harsh world, survival is the only priority that matters right now. Aiven Alien flashes a confident grin as he prepares to lead the way. He urges Fredia to focus on survival first, promising that hope will follow once they are safe. Fredia watches him with a calm, trusting expression as they begin their journey. The Magitech carriage speeds down a winding forest road. Aiven hopes they can find shelter before the sun goes down. By nightfall, the carriage pulls up outside a quiet, moonlit inn. Inside the cozy tavern, a steaming pot of hearty stew is served to the hungry pair. Aiven and Fredia dig into their meal, the warm firelight reflecting in the room. Aiven leans in, questioning why Fredia insisted on booking 2 separate rooms. He points out the danger of being separated if their pursuers find them during the night. Fredia calmly explains her tactical ruse. They will book 2 rooms but sleep in only one to confuse any potential assassins. Fredia pauses mid-bite, her cheeks full of food as she realizes his logic makes sense. Aiven catches her off guard with a playful, devious smirk. He teases her, asking if she actually planned to share a room with him from the very start. Fredia snaps, refusing to listen to another word of nonsense. A thunderous crash shatters the tavern window, sending shards of glass and debris flying. Fredia screams in shock as the peaceful atmosphere is violently destroyed. Paralyzed with fear, the patrons cry out to the gods at the sight of the intruder. Someone desperately shouts to block the windows, but the monster is already inside. A massive, green-scaled beast claws its way through the frame, its muscles bulging with power. The creature lets out a bone-chilling roar, baring its rows of razor-sharp teeth. A spear suddenly blurs through the air, thrown with incredible force. The weapon bites deep into the monster's back, spraying dark blood across the room. The beast is slammed backward and pinned firmly to a thick wooden pillar. Aiven watches the carnage with a grim expression, knowing the real battle has just begun. Aiven stands amidst the tavern's wreckage, holding a shattered chair with a smug smirk. He lets out a satisfied huff, clearly enjoying the aftermath of the brief skirmish. The atmosphere shifts instantly as the terrified patrons erupt into wild cheers for their savior. Aiven's confidence wavers as he stares back in awkward silence, completely caught off guard by the sudden adoration. He rubs his head in frustration, regretting his impulsive decision to intervene in the fight. The scene shifts to the eerie silence of Carltown Cemetery under the cover of night. Necromancer stands amidst the rows of gravestones, his arms raised in a fanatical prayer to his dark lord. He vows to unleash a twisted form of mercy upon the world as he prepares a forbidden ritual. Clutching a glowing green skull, he channels his malevolent mana into the earth. The ground begins to tremble and crack as a thick, sickly green energy surges from the graves. 2 massive, green-scaled monsters claw their way out of the dirt, letting out bone-chilling growls as they rise to serve their master. Necromancer uses the glowing skull to pinpoint his targets, surprised by how quickly they've reached a nearby inn. Chanting in a forbidden tongue, he channels a surge of malevolent energy into the artifact to fuel his dark tracking spell. The Necromancer unleashes a horde of green-scaled monstrosities into the night, ordering them to hunt down Fredia Gusmith. Inside the tavern, Aiven's instincts flare as he senses the approaching threat. He bellows a warning to the patrons, snapping them into a frantic defensive state. Terrified villagers scramble to board up the windows and pile heavy furniture against the main entrance. Aiven takes command, organizing the defense and sending the women and children upstairs for safety. Men armed with swords gather at the front, their hands trembling as they prepare for the inevitable assault. The tavern falls into a heavy, suffocating silence as everyone waits for the first strike. Strange, rhythmic tapping suddenly echoes against the wooden walls, sending a chill through the room. Aiven signals for absolute silence, his eyes fixed on the door as he moves to investigate the source of the noise. A desperate voice screams for help from behind the tavern door, claiming monsters are closing in from every side. Aiven stands firm, his hand hovering near the handle as he listens to the girl's frantic pleas for mercy. One of the men inside panics, urging the group to open up and save her before it's too late. Aiven suddenly shouts for everyone to wait, his sharp gaze fixed on the entrance. He questions the girl outside, asking if there is truly a large horde of monsters following her. The voice screams that there are too many to count, begging them to open the door before she is eaten alive. The villagers grow restless with guilt, fearing they are leaving a young girl to a gruesome death. Aiven ignores their protests, calmly asking if there is anyone else out there besides her. When the voice confirms she is completely alone, Aiven's expression shifts into a confident, knowing smirk. He points out the fatal flaw in her story, questioning how a lone girl could possibly navigate a horde of countless undead by herself. The realization hits the room like a physical blow, and the men's faces pale as they realize they almost fell for a trap. They stare at the door in horror, finally questioning the true identity of the person pleading for help. Violent pounding suddenly shakes the wooden frame, the sound echoing through the now silent tavern. The villagers turn to Aiven in a cold sweat, their eyes filled with terror as they wait for his next command. Aiven demands a weapon from a terrified villager to face the looming threat. He tightly grips a sturdy spear, his eyes locked on the target with lethal focus. With a burst of speed, Aiven charges toward the barricaded entrance. He thrusts the spear through the wood, hopping to catch the intruder off guard. A series of violent thuds shake the door as something massive fights back from the other side. A long, jagged ghoul's bone claw hooks into the frame, slowly prying the door open. Aiven realizes these aren't just mindless monsters, their calculated movements prove a necromancer is pulling the strings. A massive explosion of debris fills the room as the beast finally shatters the heavy barricade. A towering, green-scaled monstrosity steps into the light, its body rippling with unnatural muscle. The beast lets out a low growl, its sharp claws and spiked back making it a nightmare come to life. The green-scaled beast lets out a deafening roar, but Aiven isn't interested in its noise. With a blinding flash of blue energy, he delivers a lethal horizontal slash that cuts straight through the monster's hide. Aiven turns to the terrified group behind him, offering a cocky grin to ease the tension. He reassures Fredia and the villagers that he has the situation under control. However, his confidence instantly evaporates as he peers through a massive hole in the tavern wall. His eyes widen in pure shock, a cold sweat breaking across his brow as he sees the true scale of the threat. Outside, a massive legion of the venomous, green-skinned monsters swarms the village streets. The sheer number of beasts is overwhelming, turning the quiet town into a literal war zone. The villagers erupt in a frantic panic, realizing these aren't just ordinary predators. Seeing the impending slaughter, Aiven snaps back into a combat stance. His gaze hardens as he prepares to lead a desperate defense against the encroaching horde. The village militia charges into the fray, their faces twisted in desperate rage as they fight for their lives. They rally with a fierce battle cry, fueled by the need to protect their families from the encroaching slaughter. One man swings his blade with everything he has, desperately trying to block the path to the second floor. The green-skinned horde surges forward like a mindless wave, piling into the building with terrifying hunger. A sharp-eared woman takes command of the terrified survivors, her voice cutting through the panic. She orders everyone to huddle together, making sure the children are shielded in the center. A mother clutches her child in a protective embrace, her eyes closed as she waits for the sounds of battle to fade. The villagers huddle together in the tavern, their faces etched with terror as the sounds of battle echo outside. Suddenly, a massive green-scaled monster smashes through the wall, letting out a bone-chilling roar. The beast crashes onto the wooden floor, sending debris flying everywhere. Fredia steps forward, her gaze sharp as she faces the encroaching threat. She tells everyone to stay calm, her voice steady despite the chaos. Before the monster can strike, it's suddenly bombarded by a hail of mugs, forks, and spoons thrown by the villagers. Fredia watches in pure disbelief as the ordinary townspeople take a stand. The women of the village brandish kitchen knives and utensils, their eyes filled with a fierce resolve to protect their home. Fredia smiles with pride, witnessing the unexpected bravery of the village women. She focuses her energy, a glowing blue rune pulsing between her palms as she prepares a spell. A jagged shard of ice forms in the air, crackling with raw magical power. Fredia hurls the frozen spear with a fierce shout, sending it whistling through the tavern. The ice projectile slams into a green-scaled monster, obliterating its skull in a single strike. Standing as a shield for a terrified mother and child, Fredia prepares her next move. She raises her hands toward the ceiling, summoning a massive, glowing magic circle. Activating the Madelfir domain, she creates a powerful ward to hold back the encroaching horde. Fredia looks back with a determined smirk, telling Aiven Alien to rest easy while she secures the second floor. Aiven stands over a mountain of defeated green-scaled monsters, his breathing heavy but his resolve unshaken. He looks back at the survivors, realizing they can't afford to stay trapped inside the tavern forever. Aiven decides to take the fight to the source and hunt down the necromancer responsible for this nightmare. He orders the men to keep their guard up and hold the line against any undead that try to break through. The men nod in terrified agreement, putting their faith in the powerful warrior's plan. Aiven charges headfirst into the fray, his blade a blur of motion as he carves a path through the monsters. He bellows for the creatures to get out of his way, refusing to let anything slow his momentum. With a powerful swing, he cleaves through the front line, his eyes fixed on the exit. He bursts out of the tavern, only to find himself staring down a literal sea of undead stretching across the village. Surrounded on all sides, Aiven continues his desperate assault, his movements growing more frantic. He slashes through the monsters with a fierce command to move, but the sheer numbers are starting to take their toll. Suddenly, the sound of splintering metal echoes through the air as his sword finally reaches its breaking point. Aiven stares in absolute horror at the shattered remains of his blade, realizing he's now defenseless in the heart of the horde. A monster's lethal claw looms inches from his face as he realizes just how much trouble he's in. He doesn't panic, noting that the ordinary iron weapon served its purpose well enough while it lasted. With his primary blade gone, Aiven realizes he has only one option left to turn the tide. He plants his foot firmly, preparing to unleash the full power of his SSR talent. Aiven calls out for his core, world reshaping to activate, a golden aura surging from his legs. Jagged crystalline shards erupt from the ground in a blinding flash of light and debris. The environment itself bends to his will, forging a new set of equipment in the heat of battle. Aiven emerges fully transformed, clad in sharp geometric armor and dual-wielding massive stone blades. Even though he's never played this specific class before, he knows a true barbarian is only complete when they're dual-wielding and ready to go berserk. A fierce grin spreads across Aiven's face as he stares down the monsters. He challenges the horde to bring their best, ready to get down to the bloody work of survival. Aiven is a whirlwind of destruction, tearing through the green horde with his massive stone blades. Limbs and green blood fly everywhere as he pulverizes the monsters with ease. Ch.1-23 watches from the shadows of the forest, his face contorted in pure shock. He can't believe the first princess's supposed random barbarian is capable of such monstrous power. Ch.1 grits his teeth, realizing he's been set up by Cayenne Paulus. He curses the backstabbing necromancer for leading him into a death trap. Ch.1 spots a faint green light trailing through the air, recognizing it as Cayenne's signature spell. He suspects Cayenne is already planning to betray the mission and abandon him. Hidden beneath his stone helmet, Aiven Alien watches the glowing trail with a cold, calculated gaze. He knows the marking light is only visible to him, leaving his true target completely exposed. Aiven tightens his grip on a massive stone spear, blue energy crackling along the jagged rock. He prepares to strike, wondering if the coward ahead is already looking for an exit. Standing tall in his heavy stone armor, Aiven locks his sights on the distant figure. He confirms the identity of the target. The necromancer responsible for this mess is right where he wants him. Aiven launches a massive stone spear with lethal velocity. The jagged projectile tears through the air, heading straight for its target. Ch.1 barely has time to react before the stone spike pierces his chest. Blood sprays across the clearing as the necromancer is impaled by the sudden strike. Staring down at the glowing purple energy around the wound, Kuro is frozen in absolute disbelief. Kyan suddenly materializes right behind him, his cold eyes fixed on the dying man. He mocks Kuro's shock, reminding him that the word impossible doesn't exist in his world. Terror fills Kuro's gaze as he realizes the sheer gap in their power. He gasps out a final question, desperate to understand the motive behind the betrayal. Kyan remains completely indifferent to the man's suffering. He explains that their interests simply aligned for a moment, and now that moment is over. With a final, cold remark, Aiven watches as Kuro collapses into the dirt. Aiven emerges from the darkness, cornering Kyan Paulus in the middle of the quiet village. Standing with his hand near his blade, Aiven proposes a surprising alliance. Kyan looks back over his shoulder, his eyes narrowed as he weighs the offer. Aiven outlines a ruthless plan to sabotage his own instructor, Lucius Sulla, and drive him into exile. Kyan crosses his arms, his expression shifting as he questions the warrior's true motives. Aiven reveals his cold logic, seeing Lucius's desperation as his own path to reaching Tier 4. Kyan stares back with a sharp, calculating gaze, demanding to know what the price of their partnership will be. Kyan Paulus outlines the treacherous details of their secret deal. He promises to stall the Reform faction's double agents, ensuring Lucius Sulla remains in the dark for days. Kyan flashes a devious, confident grin as he guarantees a safe return to Avanmore under the protection of royal escorts. Aiven accepts the terms with a cold and determined look. He vows that Lucius Sulla will not have a happy ending. Aiven watches as Kyan Paulus disappears into the shadows of the moonlit forest. He warns the traitor to follow through on his end of the bargain. Standing alone in the quiet town, Aiven reflects on the noble character of Fredia Gusmith. He realizes that if she ever sends a distress signal, it would only be to protect the commoners, never for her own safety. Aiven's eyes narrow as a deep suspicion takes root. He wonders how Kyan Paulus could possibly understand the princess's heart so intimately. He stares into the distance, determined to uncover the hidden connection between the necromancer and Fredia. The villagers erupt in joy, celebrating their hard-fought victory with music and shouts of a feast. Inside the quiet inn, Fredia stresses the urgency of returning to Avanmore to prevent further bloodshed. Fredia quickly drafts a letter to a nearby temple, hoping to reach her brother Otto through secret royal channels. With a determined look, Fredia calls out for her loyal companion Socks. A glowing golden portal ripples against the brick wall, illuminating the room. A spirited golden retriever named Socks leaps through the magic ring, barking with excitement. Fredia carefully secures the message to the dog's collar, giving him clear instructions to head for the temple. She warns Socks to keep her location a strict secret, sharing it only with her brother. Socks barks in understanding as Aiven Alien gives the brave pup a final pat on the head. Outside the town's timber-framed houses, the heavy weight of the journey finally sets in. Aiven slumps against a door, closing his eyes for a moment of much-needed rest after the relentless battle. Aiven's rest is cut short when a pink-haired youth named Otto suddenly confronts him. Otto demands to know the exact nature of Aiven's relationship with his sister, Fredia. Stunned and speechless, Aiven can only stare back as armored guards wait for his response. Otto ignores the silence and frantically calls out for Fredia's whereabouts. Fredia steps out from the shadows, greeting her little Otto with a teasing smile. The tension breaks as Fredia introduces her brother to her companion, Aiven. Otto huffs with royal impatience, ordering everyone to pack up and board the carriage immediately. A grand carriage pulled by 2 horses is readied for their departure. Aiven and Aiven settle into the cabin, their expressions grim as they prepare for the next leg of the journey. The armored driver cracks the reins with a loud shout, urging the horses into a gallop. The carriage blurs past the trees, finally heading toward the capital city of Avanmore. The royal carriage rolls through the castle gates, flanked by armored guards standing at attention. Excited citizens line the streets, cheering wildly as they celebrate the safe return of Fredia. Fredia rushes into the palace, her voice echoing through the grand halls as she desperately calls out for her father. The multi-towered castle of the Eland capital stands tall, a symbol of power despite the looming shadows of war. Inside the royal chambers, Fredia collapses at the bedside of the frail demon king. The king looks pale and weakened, resting under an ornate yellow blanket as he welcomes his daughter home. Tears stream down Fredia's face as she delivers the chilling news of the necromancy faction's treason. The king's expression hardens, his gaze sharp as he questions if the betrayal was against the crown or the kingdom itself. Fredia's eyes burn with fury as she reveals the cult's plan to worship an evil god and threaten the entire material realm. The king absorbs the weight of the revelation, his previous warmth replaced by a grim, silent resolve. Shifting the conversation, the king asks about the mysterious warrior, Aiven, who protected her during the ambush. Fredia's expression softens into a playful, thoughtful smile as she describes her savior as a very strange guy. Intrigued by her report, the king orders a formal dinner to personally meet the man who saved the princess. Fredia beams with joy, nodding her agreement before heading off to deliver the royal invitation. King Goldsmith rests on his ornate couch, his health clearly failing as he summons Ashram to bring Gaius to his chambers. The king's eyes narrow with suspicion, doubting that a man of Gaius's stature could truly fail to detect the presence of cultists. Ashram bows deeply, acknowledging the royal decree with a sharp "Yes, your majesty." Before the elf can leave, the king adds a second, more secretive mission: investigate the mysterious young man, Aiven. The king's face twists into a stern glare, demanding every scrap of information on the warrior who saved his daughter. Meanwhile, Aiven relaxes in his guest quarters, finally finding a moment of peace after his long journey. A sudden knock at the door breaks the silence, snapping him back to reality. Maria, the head maid of Schönbrunn Palace, enters the room with a graceful bow and a composed expression. She delivers an official invitation from King Goldsmith, requesting Aiven's presence at dinner. Maria suggests that the weary guest should bathe and rest before the evening's festivities begin. Aiven blushes, visibly flustered by the maid's direct gaze, but he quickly agrees to follow royal etiquette. Maria leads Aiven through the palace to a grand marble-lined bathhouse. Water flows from a silver lion's head, filling the massive pool with a gentle steam. As Aiven prepares to relax, Maria suddenly lunges forward and wraps her arms around him in a tight embrace. She makes a shocking proposal, asking to undress and bathe alongside the honored guest. Aiven recoils in pure panic, desperately pulling away from the bold maid. He stammers in confusion, wondering if this bizarre and forward encounter is actually part of the palace's official reception. Maria maintains a professional, almost stoic expression as she insists on performing her supposed duties. She leans in closer, her gaze unwavering despite the awkwardness of the situation. Aiven isn't buying the act for a second, his eyes narrowing as he studies the woman before him. He shifts his weight, keeping a cautious distance while testing her resolve. Aiven sits back on the marble edge, his sharp gamer instincts finally piecing together the truth. He reveals his discovery, nodding that a high-ranking expert like Maria is far too overqualified for simple domestic service. Maria stands perfectly still, her composed mask finally showing a hint of the power Aiven just called out. Maria drops her act, a sly smirk playing on her lips after being called out by Aiven. She decides to give the guest some privacy, gracefully exiting the bathhouse. Aiven remains seated by the water, his expression grim as he processes the encounter. He watches her go, his guard still up despite the luxury of the palace. Outside, the afternoon sun bathes the red roofs of the royal palace in a peaceful light. The commander stands on the palace balcony, questioning Maria about the young man who managed to catch her attention. Maria describes Aiven as an extremely cautious and observant individual who isn't easily swayed by his own desires. The commander teases her, asking if he ever gave the order for her to seduce the boy. Maria leans in with a playful smirk, mockingly asking if the commander is feeling a bit jealous. The commander dismisses her, ordering her to step back and leave the remainder of the mission in his hands. When Maria asks if he plans to intervene personally, the commander reveals a darker intent. He decides to stay back and let his brothers and sisters have a bit of fun first. The commander puts his fingers to his lips and lets out a sharp, piercing whistle. Responding to the call, a pack of massive, glowing-eyed wolves lunges forward through the mist, ready to hunt. The scene shifts to the Avanmore Royal Palace, standing tall and imposing under the afternoon sun. Inside his private quarters, Aiven prepares for the royal dinner, adjusting his noble attire in front of a grand mirror. Aiven stands in the middle of a grand palace hall, looking around in confusion. A massive white wolf suddenly looms over him, but Aiven just wonders where the dog came from. He takes a closer look, realization hitting him that the beast is actually a giant wolf. In the distance, Ashram watches with a sinister smirk, ordering the creature to show its might. He commands the wolf Sheila to play with the young warrior for a bit. Sheila lets out a deafening roar, her massive jaws open wide right in Aiwen's face. Aiwen remains completely unfazed, staring back with a calm, indifferent expression. Suddenly, Sheila's aggression vanishes as she begins to whimper and blush in terror. Aiwen watches in confusion, baffled that the terrifying beast is now whining like a submissive puppy. Sheila the giant wolf is totally smitten, rolling on her back and barking happily like a puppy as Aiwen alien pets her belly. Hearts float around the massive beast as she woofs with joy, completely forgetting her role as a terrifying predator. Watching the embarrassing display from the sidelines, Maria giggles behind her hand, finding the scene hilarious. Ashram is far from amused, clutching his forehead in frustration as his plan to intimidate the boy backfires. Ashram quickly recovers his composure, striking a dramatic pose as he formulates a new plan. He decides that as an uncle figure, it's better for him to test Aiwen's strength directly and openly. Unfazed by the drama, Aiwen Alien continues to stroke the wolf's thick fur, recalling her name from the game's lore. He gently addresses the creature as Sheila, the gentle giant, confirming his deep knowledge of the world's most powerful beings. Ashram marches toward the duo, calling out to the young warrior to get his attention. Aiwen turns to meet the man's gaze, his expression neutral as he prepares for the next encounter. Standing tall beside the now calm Sheila, Ashram formally introduces himself with an air of authority. He reveals his identity as Ashram, an elite boss of the 4th rank, making it clear that the real test is about to begin. Ashram challenges Aiwen to a friendly duel, eager to test the man Princess Fredia has chosen. Aiwen Alien graciously accepts the challenge with a polite bow. The two head to the training grounds outside Manhwa Palace, drawing the attention of the local guards. Ashram orders the onlookers to clear the area, wanting no distractions for their fight. The guards are thrilled at the prospect of a show, recalling the last person who dared to provoke the master. Standing at opposite ends of the sandy arena, Ashram asks if his opponent is prepared. Aiwen gives a short, confident answer, his hand resting on his blade. Ashram lunges forward with a wooden sword, warning the young man to stay alive as he strikes. Aiwen holds his wooden sword with a cocky grin, dismissing Ashram's warnings. Ashram lunges, his strike shattering the ground and sending a massive wall of rock flying toward his opponent. Aiwen stands unfazed amidst the debris as his wooden sword erupts into a brilliant, magical flame. Ashram pauses, eyeing the flaming weapon with sharp curiosity as he questions if these are Aiwen's true skills. Aiwen flashes a smug smile, giving a cryptic answer that only fuels the elf's suspicion. Eager to test the warrior's limits, Ashram launches himself into the air for another high-speed assault. Aiwen readies his blazing blade, challenging the master to show him his true power. The two warriors clash in a flurry of sparks, their blades meeting with bone-rattling force. A devastating strike sweeps through the air, finally shattering Aiwen's wooden sword into splinters. Ashram stands tall over his opponent, declaring the duel over and telling the young man that he has already lost. Aiwen grips the hilt of his shattered wooden blade, a cocky grin spreading across his face as he challenges the elven master's certainty. In an instant, the broken wood erupts into a violent torrent of magical flames. Aiwen lunges forward with a blazing strike, catching Ashram completely off guard with his sudden surge of power. Sensing the impending destruction, Ashram screams for the nearby guards to scatter for their lives. A massive explosion of fire and debris rips through the training grounds, leveling the area in a blinding flash of orange light. The dust of battle settles over the grand arena, revealing a formidable silhouette standing tall amidst the ruins. Coughing through the haze, the battle-hardened instructor marvels at the unbelievable strength of the new generation. Declaring the trial complete, the mentor praises his student's progress, though the young warrior remains humble. Sent to prepare for the royal gathering, the warrior watches as his guide warns him of the trials ahead. Within the towering, sunlit corridors of the palace, a lone maiden in white awaits their fateful reunion. Startled by a familiar voice, Princess Freya turns with wide eyes, caught completely off guard. Dressed in elegant royal armor, the barbarian stands unrecognizable, leaving the princess utterly speechless. Admiring his sudden transformation, she playfully admits that even a wild barbarian can look remarkably noble. But as another guest emerges in an unexpected gown, the warrior is left completely frozen in absolute shock. Standing proud in a crimson gown, the eccentric warrior boldly challenges the absurd rules of society with absolute defiance. With a dramatic flourish, he urges the young hero to enter the grand hall where his destiny awaits. Aiven takes a knee upon the crimson carpet, preparing to face the ultimate authority of the kingdom. Before the grand throne of Eland, the legendary warrior pays his respects to the ruler of this troubled land. The aging monarch delivers a heavy question, testing the young warrior's true perspective on the decaying kingdom. Aiven hesitates for a fleeting moment, his sharp gaze reflecting the heavy burden of his unspoken thoughts. Demanding absolute honesty, the king presses him to reveal what must be done to save their dying empire. With eyes burning like cold steel, Aiven delivers a single revolutionary command that will shatter the status quo. Under the silent gaze of the crescent moon, a dark tower looms, harboring secrets that could change the world. Deep within the shadowed stone tower, a solitary figure ascends the winding steps to meet a dark destiny. A lone candle burns low in the quiet chamber, its flickering flame casting long shadows against the cold stone. A toxic brew of glowing green essence is prepared, bubbling with forbidden energy. Within the cup lies a deadly draught, a sinister concoction ready to be consumed. Lucius Sulla drinks the glowing elixir, green vapors escaping his lips as the dark magic takes hold. The Grand Wizard plots his next move, his eyes burning with a malevolent green light. His loyal follower listens intently, the weight of their dark conspiracy resting heavily upon his shoulders. Looking out into the dark night, he prepares to execute the master's ruthless commands. Under the cold light of the crescent moon, the red-haired apprentice bows deeply before departing on his mission. A mysterious glowing green plant shifts and rustles with a strange, unnatural sentience. Lucius Sulla gazes upon the mystical flora, dismissing the notion that he needs a successor just yet. Lucius Sulla sneers with cold disdain, dismissing any thoughts of choosing a mediocre successor for his grand designs. A brilliant blue flame erupts from his palm, crackling with raw, untamed magical energy. Unrolling an ancient map, Lucius Sulla reveals the dark labyrinth of sewers running beneath the unsuspecting city. He points out the precise locations where dark spell marks must be placed to trigger their catastrophic scheme. The strange, sentient flora sways with amusement, marveling at the sheer audacity of the wizard's plan. With a cold scoff, the wizard prepares to wage war against the entire civilized world. Meanwhile, high above the city, the grand royal palace stands silent under the cold light of the crescent moon. Before the throne, a devoted knight kneels. A sovereign declaration echoes, charting Eland's destiny toward a glorious new dawn. The king of Eland stares down with absolute authority, comparing the young warrior's potential to the legends of old. Aiven meets the sovereign's gaze, his sharp blue eyes reflecting a quiet defiance that refuses to bend. Though only a first-tier warrior, Aiven holds a colossal reserve of magic that rivals the most elite practitioners. The king marvels at a body capable of breaking free from the mortal realm's physical limits. The monarch reveals a legendary title spoken only in whispers 1,000 years ago. Before the throne, the ultimate truth is laid bare, designating Aiven as the seed of perfection. Aiven struggles to comprehend the weight of a title he never expected to hear. A legendary path of ascension unfolds, mapping the journey of a soul reaching absolute transcendence. Aiven recalls his past achievements, realizing this world's rules differ from the game he once mastered. The king of Eland looks down from his grand marble throne, acknowledging that the future of this world belongs to the youth. Standing atop the grand red steps, the ruler solemnly entrusts the safety of Princess Fredia to the young warrior. With a heavy heart, the aging monarch implores Aiven to stay by her side and guide her through the coming storm. The journey leads to the Grand Evanmore Arena, a colossal coliseum where beasts and warriors clash for ultimate glory. Bloodthirsty spectators erupt in deafening cheers, hungry for the brutal spectacle about to unfold on the sands. A towering beastman charges onto the field, a mountain of pure muscle ready to crush anyone in his path. With a savage roar, the monstrous warrior ruthlessly tackles his opponent, shattering their defenses instantly. The crowd erupts in absolute frenzy as the final touchdown seals a historic victory for the Labyrinth team, crowning them the champions. Amidst the roaring celebration, Fredia and Aiven applaud the spectacular triumph, their hearts lifted by the electric atmosphere of the arena. But the joy of victory is instantly shattered as a frantic messenger scrambles through the crowd, desperately calling for the princess. Pushing through the onlookers, the breathless messenger kneels before Fredia, his face pale with grave and terrifying news. With trembling breath, the messenger delivers a devastating blow, announcing that Caesar has been found dead. Shock and disbelief wash over Fredia as the weight of the sudden tragedy leaves her completely frozen. The scene shifts to the grim, stone-walled lower district of Evanmore, where a dark shadow has fallen over the reformist faction. The cold stone floor of the lower district is stained with blood, marking the brutal end of a prominent figure. Aiven analyzes the crimson tracks, his sharp eyes deducing the exact height and nature of the silent killer. A chilling message written in fresh blood stares back from the cold stone walls, mocking their search for answers. Fredia questions the killer's bizarre motive, struggling to comprehend the twisted sense of justice left behind at the scene. Aiven harbors deep suspicions, questioning if the deceased noble was truly the righteous man everyone believed him to be. An outraged defender of the noble's honor fiercely rejects any doubt, his anger flaring at Aiwen's cold skepticism. Driven by blind fury, Brutus demands a retraction, threatening a duel to defend his master's untarnished legacy. Fredia desperately commands Brutus to halt, trying to defuse the explosive tension before blood is spilled once more. Aiwen delivers a chilling truth, questioning why a righteous noble would secretly meet someone in the slums at midnight. Aiwen questions the suspicious lack of resistance from the fallen swordsman, leaving Brutus completely speechless. With a cold grip, Aiwen delivers a stern warning, reminding the young noble to never speak of duels so lightly. Princess Fredia steps in to defuse the tension, ordering the grieving Brutus to focus on his friend's funeral arrangements. Bowing in submission, Brutus accepts the princess's command before retreating from the tense encounter. Looking down at the corpse, Fredia notes the bizarre nature of the tragedy, sensing a deeper conspiracy at play. Fredia warns that this death will ignite a brutal clash between the kingdom's powerful political factions. Aiwen's gaze sharpens as he deduces that the victim harbored a lethal secret that ultimately cost him his life. Fredia realizes the terrifying possibility of treason, wondering if the victim was secretly allied with their rivals. Aiwen warns of a far deadlier threat lurking in the shadows, pointing directly to the sinister necromancy faction. Aiwen pieces together the puzzle, realizing a traitor within the necromancy faction intentionally cleared their path. The shocking revelation leaves Fredia breathless as the identity of the double agent finally comes to light. Unarmed and defenseless, the conspirator was silenced forever before he could expose the master's true design. Fredia wonders if the sinister Cayenne Paulus is pulling the strings behind this web of lies. Meanwhile, inside the silent quarters of Schönbrunn Palace, guards stand watch outside the dying king's chambers. Ashram strides through the royal halls, bearing the heavy weight of the kingdom's dark secrets. Summoned to the king's bedside, Ashram prepares to deliver the grim news of the looming betrayal. A secret dispatch from the frozen north arrives, carrying startling revelations about the mysterious young warrior. The unexpected news reaches the highest authority, defying all predictions and shaking the palace to its core. The sovereign struggles to comprehend how a simple barbarian could align with the cold zealots of the north. Deep within the Royal Alchemy Laboratory, the stage is set for a transformation that will shatter destiny. Unleashing the forbidden power of his core, Aiwen initiates a revolutionary reconstruction of reality itself. From the swirling vortex of raw magical energy, a legendary weapon of devastating power begins to take shape. Aiwen Alien inspects his newly forged weapon, a devastating firearm known simply as the Smasher. With a heavy metallic click, the lethal chamber locks into place, ready to unleash absolute devastation. Eyeing the massive barrel, Aiwen prepares to descend once more into the lawless depths of the lower district. The heavy stone gates of the lower district loom ahead, a grim labyrinth harboring dangerous new secrets. Shrouded in a dark cloak, Aiwen slips silently through the suspicious crowds, keeping his senses sharp. Unbeknownst to the young warrior, watchful eyes track his every movement from the cold shadows. A sinister silhouette tails him closely, turning his quiet reconnaissance into a deadly game of survival. A sudden voice cuts through the shadows as a deadly weapon is drawn, trapping Aiwen in a tense, silent standoff. In the cold shadows of the alley, Aiven and Cayenne Paulus draw their weapons, locking each other in a deadly silent standoff. Lowering his guard, Cayenne demands to know who first delivered the news of Caesar's sudden death to the princess. Aiven narrows his eyes in deep suspicion, instantly questioning the true motive behind such a calculated inquiry. Cayenne reveals a chilling theory, suggesting a second spy lurks deep within the ranks of the necromancy faction. When Aiven questions if Brutus is the hidden traitor, Cayenne admits the possibility cannot be ignored. Aiven mocks the necromancer, asking if he simply couldn't resist returning to the scene of the crime like a common murderer. Dismissing the accusation with a cold smirk, Cayenne refuses to engage in such predictable and boring behavior. Issuing a daring challenge, Cayenne invites Aiven to follow him deep into the hidden, dark history of Avanmore. Cayenne Paulus leads the way, slipping silently into the lightless depths of the ancient sewers. Aiwen follows closely, surrounded by the eerie glow of malevolent green energy. Deep in the dark, the young warrior prepares to uncover the hidden secrets of the underground. They descend into the lower district sewers, a foul labyrinth teeming with decay. The overwhelming stench of the toxic green waters tests even a battle-hardened warrior's endurance. Demanding the truth, Aiwen questions their real purpose in this wretched place. Cayenne reveals a terrifying ritual created by his master, Lucius Sulla, one capable of triggering an apocalypse. The revelation leaves Aiwen frozen in shock. Aiwen and Cayenne descend deeper into the putrid green depths, uncovering the horrific scale of Lucius Sulla's apocalyptic design. The sheer scale of the sacrifice leaves Aiwen questioning how any single mage could harbor such devastating power. Cayenne reveals a chilling truth. A dark hidden force pulls the strings from the deepest shadows of the kingdom. A sacrificial magic circle is being woven directly beneath the city streets, turning the sewers into a massive death trap. Under the guise of clearing low-grade aberrations, the necromancers conduct their forbidden rituals completely undetected. A sudden disturbance shatters the silence, forcing the uneasy allies to prepare for an imminent threat. Something sinister stirs beneath the toxic currents, and it is definitely not a harmless creature of the deep. A horrific, mutated aberration erupts from the green depths, ready to tear the intruders apart. Kyan dismisses the weak creature, confident that even a basic soldier could easily dispatch such a minor nuisance. Aiven remains deeply unsettled, sensing that the true horror isn't the creature before them, but whatever is hunting it. A massive, armored tail thrashes through the toxic water, heralding the arrival of a colossal predator. A gargantuan beast breaches the surface, its massive maw gaping wide to swallow the fleeing water ghost whole. With a bone-crushing snap, the colossal jaws clamp down, instantly devouring the lesser monster in a single bite. Aiven recoils in disgust as the foul stench of the massive sewer predator fills the damp, narrow corridor. Kyan recognizes the grotesque beast as a forbidden ritual monster, discarded by the ruthless Blood Order gang. From the toxic abyss, a forgotten abomination claims the dark underworld. Now this colossal nightmare rises, ravenous for slaughter. Trapped in the narrow sewer, Aiven and Kyan brace themselves as the monstrosity closes in. This is no ordinary beast, but a grotesque, out-of-control scavenger born from a forbidden ritual. Aiven's sharp eyes spot a bizarre residual spell mark left on the creature's massive limb. The residual magical scarring hints that another powerful mage has already engaged this colossal threat. Losing his patience, Kyan draws his weapon, determined to put an end to the grotesque abomination. A precise shot erupts through the darkness, striking the beast directly in its gaping maw. With a deafening blast, Aiven unleashes the devastating power of his new firearm, directly into the beast's gaping maw. The colossal abomination collapses into the murky depths, sending a violent wave crashing through the narrow sewer. Standing over the smoking carcass, Aiven warns Kyan that the gunfire has likely exposed their position. A sudden shift in the ambient mana catches Aiven's attention, his sharp gaze locking onto a new threat. Peering into the abyss, Aiven detects a powerful magical signature radiating from the darkness ahead. Deep within the subterranean labyrinth, the shadows begin to gather, waiting for the intruders to step forward. Surrounded by a rapidly growing horde of enemies, the duo readies their weapons with cold, battle-tested confidence. Below them, the toxic waters churn violently as the unseen legion prepares to mount their final, desperate assault. A towering wooden colossus emerges from the shadows, dripping with a toxic, glowing green slime. Aiven and Fredia watch in disbelief, realizing these ancient forest guardians have been summoned deep within the sewers. Beneath the towering beast, a mysterious silhouette steps forward, orchestrating this unnatural subterranean invasion. The beautiful druid Willow Dithia reveals herself, welcoming the unexpected encounter with a chillingly polite smile. The seductive fallen druid Willow Dithia tempts Aiven, offering him the forbidden path of nature. She mocks the dark forces surrounding them, trying to sway the young warrior with her venomous charm. Aiwen's sharp eyes analyze her true identity, instantly recognizing her as a dangerous agent of the dark cult. With absolute resolve, Aiven rejects her offer, even as his companion warns of her overwhelming power. The druid's beautiful facade shatters, revealing a monstrous glowing fury as she prepares to strike. Massive, toxic vines erupt from the depths, turning the entire subterranean chamber into a deadly, thrashing arena. Standing amidst the swirling toxic currents, Aiven and Kyan prepare to face the wrath of the fallen druid. With a sinister glare, the necromancer unleashes a surge of dark magic from his glowing staff. A devastating explosion of nether energy erupts, threatening to consume everything in its path. Unfazed by the blast, Aiven stands firm as debris rains down around his powerful form. The shockwave slams Aiven backward against the stone wall, his body crackling with residual lightning. Pushed to the limit, Aiven activates his broken talent, ready to reshape the battlefield. The legendary heaven-bestowed armor materializes, encasing the warrior in impenetrable stone. Armed with overwhelming power, Aiven tears through the toxic vines with absolute savagery. The battle rages on as the fallen druid Willow Dithia watches her ultimate defenses crumble. Willow Dithia sneers as she realizes her opponent is far more cunning than he appears. With a desperate command, she summons a towering legion of carnivorous flora to block his path. The grotesque sentinels loom over Aiven, ready to tear him apart. Aiven immediately senses the lethal toxins filling the air as deadly spores rain down. She watches with a smug grin, confident that no mortal can survive her toxic pollen. A massive beast lunges forward, its jaws snapping shut with bone-crushing force. Her confidence instantly shatters as the warrior stands completely unfazed by the lethal gas. Thanks to his secret internal modifications, the deadly poison is effortlessly filtered from his system. With a blinding flash of blue energy, Aiven unleashes a devastating counterstrike to end the fight. With a single devastating stroke of his blade, Aiven cleaves through the monstrous flora, blocking their path. Amidst a barrage of explosive magical counterattacks, the warrior stands firm, his gaze sharper than ever. Kyan raises his weapon, ready to unleash a second wave of lethal magic upon their enemies. In the heat of battle, an uneasy alliance forms between a future traitor and the destined hero. Willow Dithia watches in amusement, surprised by the sheer resilience of the low-grade warriors before her. With a sinister smile, Willowdithia unleashes her true form, promising to play with her intruders a little longer. But the sudden shift in the battlefield catches the powerful druid completely off guard. Aiven watches in grim silence, recognizing the legendary spirit body that only the most elite extraordinaries can summon. The colossal spirit form looms over them, radiating a terrifying pressure that threatens to crush their very souls. Realizing the sheer gap in power, the uneasy allies agree to a temporary retreat before her overwhelming vitality exhausts them. With a chillingly sweet voice, Willow offers to sing a final devastating melody for her fleeing guests. As the ancient primordial forces stir, the stage is set for a clash that will shake the very foundations of the underground. Aiven unleashes a devastating blast from his newly forged firearm, determined to break through the subterranean defenses. The beautiful yet lethal druid Willowdithia looms ahead as the key to preventing a catastrophic future. With a sudden swipe, a grotesque plant-like hand reaches from the shadows, ready to drag them into the depths. Willowdithia unleashes a rapid barrage of lethal projectiles, saturating the narrow corridor with raw, destructive energy. As the pressure mounts, Ch.1-23 abandons his ally, choosing survival over a hopeless stand. Disgusted by the sudden betrayal, Aiven prepares to face the oncoming storm entirely alone. With a maniacal grin, Willowdithia channels her ultimate power, ready to drown her foes in eternal darkness. Willowdithia unleashes her colossal form, summoning a torrent of crushing vines to overwhelm her prey. Trapped in a desperate descent, Ch.1-23 struggles to escape the suffocating grasp of the living forest. Before he can react, razor-sharp thorns erupt from the earth, ensnaring his limbs in a lethal grip. Dragged ruthlessly into the air, the necromancer is left completely defenseless against the wrath of the ancient druid. With a chilling smile, Willowdithia prepares to unleash the ultimate nightmare upon her captives. Forbidden power awakens, channeling the scent of fear through a glowing, mystical bloom. The beautiful druid Willowdithia gasps in shock as a sudden, blinding energy disrupts her ancient forest magic. With a cold and ruthless command, the ultimate power of soul liberation is unleashed upon the battlefield. Clad in heavy iron, Aiven glares back, ready to face the impending darkness. Entangled in suffocating vines, the desperate necromancer struggles against his grim and painful descent. Beneath a crimson moon, a desperate hand reaches from the inferno. The world braces for its catastrophic dawn. A lone figure walks silently into a raging sea of fire, leaving behind a world consumed by ashes. Stained with the blood of his fallen allies, the desperate warrior reaches out to stop her departure. His desperate plea echoes through the ruins, but his outstretched hand grasps nothing but empty air. Unmoved by his cries, she steps deeper into the inferno as the flames rise to claim her. As his consciousness fades, he drifts into a cold, green abyss, surrendering to the silent depths. A dark voice echoes in the silence, questioning if he has finally succumbed to absolute despair. As the heavens shatter, a lone warrior stands. From the abyss, the howling legions of the damned rise to claim the earth. In his past life, Aiven stood alone against a relentless tide of 400,000 undead monsters. He fought with absolute savagery, determined to prevent the horrific tragedy from ever repeating itself. Now the battleground has shifted to reality, and he is ready to face his ultimate destiny. Deep within the subterranean dark, Aiven prepares himself for the grueling trial that lies ahead. The seductive fallen druid Willowdithia corners him, promising to turn his body into her ultimate nourishment. Unleashing her terrifying primordial power, Willow demands that he merge with her twisted forest forever. Aiven breaks free from the illusion, his inner fire shattering the druid's grasp as reality returns. Standing tall amidst the fatting nightmare, the warrior looms over his captor with overwhelming power. Willowdithia recoils in absolute disbelief, unable to comprehend how a mere mortal broke her ultimate spell. With a crushing grip, Aiven seizes the ancient wooden vines, asserting his absolute dominance over the forest. A cold smile plays on his lips as he prepares to turn the tide against the fallen druid. Screaming in terror, the ancient guardian is violently cast aside, her control over the battlefield shattered. With the enemy neutralized, Aiven stands victorious, leaving his foes dangling in utter defeat. Willow stares in pure dread, realizing this youth possesses a terrifying power far beyond her wildest nightmares. Standing firm amidst the rising tide, Aiven Alien prepares to unleash his newly forged power. Sensing an overwhelming surge of soul power, Willowdithia recoils in absolute shock. With the enemy cornered, Aiven demands answers from the fallen druid. Realizing she is completely outmatched, Willow bitterly attempts to abandon her mission. Aiven fires a devastating warning shot, shattering the druid's path of escape. With cold determination, the white-haired warrior refuses to let his target escape. A relentless barrage of explosive rounds tears through the ancient druid's defenses. A cataclysmic detonation shatters the subterranean depths, consuming everything in its wake. The swirling vortex of dark magic fades into the sky, leaving only a lingering sense of failure in its wake. Aiven Alien curses his luck as the elusive druid slips through his fingers, escaping into the shadows. Shifting his focus, Ch.1-23 reveals he has located the sacrificial magic circle hidden deep within the sewers. Aiven confronts his uneasy ally, questioning his sudden change of heart and willingness to face the danger. Together, they plunge deeper into the toxic, glowing green waters of the subterranean labyrinth. They arrive at the heavy, ancient doors sealing the inner sanctum of the forbidden ritual. Cayenne signals for absolute silence as they prepare to cross the threshold into the enemy's domain. With a fierce battle cry, Aiven Alien launches a sudden ambush, his golden armor radiating absolute power. A devastating blast shatters the ancient stone structure, sending a violent shockwave through the damp subterranean corridor. Emerging from the thick smoke, a formidable warrior stands ready to confront the dark forces lurking in the depths. Confronted by the mysterious intruder, the cultists demand to know who dares disrupt their forbidden ritual. Panic grips the enemy as they realize their powerful ally Willowdithia has already abandoned them to their fate. Armed with his newly forged weapon, Aiven Alien prepares to deliver absolute justice to the wicked. Enraged by the sudden intrusion, the cult leader commands his forces to eliminate the threat at all costs. With a devastating blast, the battle erupts as the defenders unleash absolute chaos upon their foes. Agony tears through the dark mage as a searing fire consumes his hand. A primal howl echoes through the darkness as the beast unleashes its feral rage. The terrifying plague wolf transformation is complete, revealing a monstrous predator. The warrior smirks, instantly identifying his foe as a member of the sinister undead cult. The beast lunges with savage hunger, forcing the defenders to coordinate their desperate resistance. Stealing his resolve, the warrior channels his inner power to face the oncoming threat. A colossal spectral jaw clamps down with absolute force, ending the conflict in one blow. The dark magic erupts with absolute violence, catching the veteran warrior completely off guard as the deadly duel begins. Channeling the forbidden arts, the necromancer prepares another devastating spell to seal his opponent's fate. A blinding flash of purple energy tears through the air, forcing the dark mage to dodge the lethal strike. The cataclysmic blast detonates with deafening force, obliterating the ancient stone walls in a surge of raw power. Watching his spell dissolve the solid stone, Cayenne Paulus flashes a sinister smirk, confident in his dark mastery. From the shadows, a deadly new weapon is drawn, ready to unleash a different kind of devastation. With a deafening blast, a lethal shot erupts through the dark, targeting his foe with absolute precision. The searing projectile pierces his chest, leaving the veteran warrior reeling from the sudden lethal ambush. Deep within the subterranean dark, a forbidden scroll materializes, sparking a desperate race against time. With lethal speed, the desperate necromancer lunges forward to claim the ultimate prize. But the destined hero is always one step ahead, intercepting the prize with a mocking smile. Betrayed and outmaneuvered, the furious mage can only curse the barbarian's shameless cunning. With the enemy pinned beneath his boot, Aiven demands the absolute truth from his captive. A chilling smile spreads across his face as he prepares a highly unorthodox method of interrogation. A desperate scream echoes through the crumbling ruins as the dark secrets begin to shatter. Their path now leads to the outskirts of Ivanmore, where the legendary three towers loom in the frozen wind. The heavy gates of the ostracized school of necromancy creak open, welcoming an unexpected visitor to the Hill of Three Towers. A mysterious hooded figure confronts the royal envoy, demanding the true purpose of this unannounced intrusion. Knight Commander Belial presents his royal orders, demanding immediate compliance from the ostracized school of necromancy. The necromancer defends his orders' loyalty, insisting they have committed no acts of betrayal against the crown. Belial responds with a cold, mocking grin, questioning if the school intends to openly disobey his majesty's direct commands. Heavy cavalry stands ready at the commander's back, their drawn blades a silent warning of the kingdom's absolute authority. A sudden stomp of hooves shatters the freezing silence, heightening the tense standoff between the two factions. Cornered by the royal force, the necromancer begrudgingly promises to conduct an internal purge within 3 days. Deep beneath the surface, a dark magic circle begins to pulse, harboring secrets that threaten the entire realm. A dying breath whispers a chilling truth of a dark sacrifice, exposing a grand conspiracy of 12 hidden souls. Every detail is meticulously gathered, ensuring no clue is left behind in this grim investigation. With a knowing smirk, Aiven pieces the puzzle together, ready to disrupt the enemy's grand design. Standing over the fallen informant, the weight of the impending ritual looms heavier than ever. Aiven and Cayenne outline the classic magic circle structure, calculating their next move against the shadowy cult. Deciding to dismantle the ritual's core first, they prepare to plunge into the dark underbelly of the city. With the circle easily shattered, they make their way out, preparing to report their findings to the temple. Aiven decides to send his swift familiar, Peanut Butter, to deliver the urgent warning to the temple before time runs out. Otto stares in utter disbelief, questioning how such a tiny, fragile creature could possibly serve as a warrior's familiar. With a bold command, the small beast takes flight, soaring into the dark sky to carry out its vital mission. A cold voice echoes through the shadows as a sinister blockade of dark riders cuts off their escape. Demonic, blue-flamed beastmen emerge from the gloom, demanding vengeance for their ruined, sacrificial ritual. Trapped in enemy territory, Aiven Alien realizes the path back has been completely severed. Striking an uneasy deal, the two warriors divide their targets as a massive threat closes in. A primal howl echoes through the darkness as the beastmen unleash their feral rage. The dark mage prepares his withering magic, channeling raw energy to consume his foes. The battlefield erupts into chaos as spells clash violently against the charging horde. With absolute power, the final strike descends, ending the conflict in a blinding flash. Dark, volatile magic surges as flesh and bone warp into monstrous claws. The agonizing transformation accelerates, tearing apart the host's physical form. A ferocious beast emerges, driven mad by the corrupted power coursing through its veins. Aiven readies his weapon, knowing only a lethal strike to the head can end this madness. A devastating blast erupts, incinerating the monster's skull in a flash of blinding fire. Cayenne watches calmly, letting his own bullets fly with chilling precision. With a confident smirk, Aiven challenges his ally to see whose weapon is faster. A relentless barrage of gunfire obliterates the oncoming horde in a spectacular display of destruction. The enemy commander watches in absolute horror, unable to comprehend the devastating power of their weapons. Left with no other choice, the desperate necromancer prepares to unleash his final forbidden magic to escape the closing trap. But before the dark spell can manifest, a thunderous gunshot shatters the silence, cutting off his escape in an instant. The devastating blast tears through his defenses, shattering his concentration and leaving him screaming in agonizing pain. Pinned to the cold stone floor, the defeated cultist can only look up in absolute terror as his captor closes in. With a cold, ruthless smirk, Aiven Alien raises his blade, ready to claim the ultimate proof of his victory. Desperate and broken, the helpless sorcerer begs for mercy, realizing his life hangs by a single thread. But justice in this lawless underworld is absolute, and the executioner's blade strikes with swift, merciless precision. With the threat neutralized, Cayenne Paulus prepares to slip back into the shadows before the temple's holy knights arrive to investigate. But Aiven Alien's gaze remains sharp, knowing this fragile alliance is far from over as they navigate the dangerous road ahead. Sensing the impending danger, the mysterious hooded figure turns away, refusing to engage as the trap begins to close. A sudden violent explosion shatters the subterranean silence, sending toxic green currents erupting into the air. Heavy iron chains whistle through the darkness, sealing off the exits with cold, unforgiving steel. The holy inquisitors of the Temple of Storms descend from above, ready to purge the dark cultists once and for all. With absolute conviction, the armored warriors chant their sacred decree, offering no mercy to the wicked. A heavy armored boot slams onto the stone floor as their commander steps forward to lead the ultimate purge. Bishop Patrick, the legendary guardian of the Temple of Storms, descends upon the battlefield with his colossal divine axe. With a thunderous roar, the righteous bishop demands the immediate surrender and demise of the wicked cultists. The holy knights quickly lock down the perimeter, securing the area under the watchful eye of their commander. Aiven watches from the shadows, stunned by the sudden arrival of such a high-ranking powerhouse. A sharp, calculating gaze cuts through the gloom as the bishop senses an unfamiliar presence nearby. Bishop Patrick approaches the young warrior, the heavy silence between them crackling with unspoken tension. Looming over the boy with his massive weapon, the bishop demands a full explanation of the carnage. Aiven calmly points to the pile of dead cultists, delivering a chillingly casual confession of absolute slaughter. Standing over the fallen leader, Aiven shamelessly suggests using the corpse as a divine sacrifice to the great god. Bishop Patrick stares in absolute disbelief, struggling to comprehend the sheer scale of the carnage left in Aiven's wake. Recognizing a powerful ally against the dark forces, the legendary bishop offers a warm welcome to the young warrior. Time is running out, and Aiven urges the bishop to proceed directly to the palace to meet the demon king. Inside the luxurious cabin, the gravity of their mission weighs heavily upon them as they prepare for departure. A colossal flying beast known as Arvos materializes in the sky, serving as their majestic carriage to the heavens. With a stern warning to hold on tight, the bishop prepares to launch their incredible vessel into the clouds. As the massive carriage takes flight, Aiven braces himself for the turbulent journey through the skies. As the majestic Arvos soars high above the medieval city, the turbulent flight leaves its passengers clinging desperately to survival.